A man wakes up when he hears the voice of a girl who says she has been looking for him. She sounds disappointed that he chooses to sleep on a day she considers important. As his senses return, he recognizes the girl as Sanjo Rei. His mind immediately assumes that he is still dreaming, unable to process the situation clearly. Rei notes that he looks strangely awkward, which feels odd to her because in her view they are siblings. She identifies him as Hiro, which startles him so much that he quickly runs to the bathroom. Inside the bathroom, he stares at the mirror and becomes overwhelmed by how irritating his reflection looks to him. Rei urges him to hurry since the family's limousine is already waiting outside. Out of panic and disbelief, he slaps his own face hard enough to make it bleed, hoping pain can confirm whether any of this is real. The pain convinces him that this is not a dream. Rei notices his confused behavior and wonders what is wrong with him. At that moment, he finally grasps what has happened to him. He has become Sanjo Hiro, the most despised and disruptive male character in a certain game that has gained attention recently. The game is titled Everything for the Score, commonly known as ESCO. While the game is not widely popular, it is considered a masterpiece among fans of Yuri titles. Its primary goal is to lead the protagonist toward happiness with one of the heroines. One of the main settings of the game is Hoju Magic Academy. ESCO includes an unusually detailed simulation system, something rare in a Yuri game. The MC spends most of his time customizing weapons and magic, shaping the character's abilities in different ways that directly influence the story and prevent repetition. Even though he never fully understands why the game is structured as a Yuri game, all its elements blend together remarkably well. The four main heroines are adorable, and even the side characters are charming enough to make players want to date them. Because of this, the MC plays every day, collecting every CG, unlocking every story script, and even reading the art book. The only thing that consistently ruins the experience is Sanjo Hiro, the unwanted male presence who interferes with the Yuri relationships. Many players give ESCO poor ratings solely because of Hiro's existence. He appears far too often for a Yuri title, and is involved in almost every negative event in the game. Even the in-game characters despise him. After the MC finishes all the available routes, he leaves home and heads to a convenience store, exhausted but satisfied. On his way, he notices a couple standing at a crosswalk while a speeding truck approaches them. His body freezes for a moment and panic rises in his chest. But he cannot allow a tragic fate to befall a pair of girls who represent the kind of bond he has supported throughout the game. Driven by instinct, he runs onto the crosswalk and pushes the couple to safety. That is the last moment he clearly remembers. From the way things unfold afterward, he assumes he died and then reincarnated. Inside the limousine, Rei reminds him that the Sanjo family's banquet is starting soon. She instructs Hiro not to disturb any of the invited guests, and even refers to him as nothing more than a decorative presence. She also warns him to keep silent except during the dining session. If he behaves strangely again, she says he will only earn an additional label, implying that his reputation could worsen even further. The MC, now inhabiting Hiro's role, notices the cold and distant gaze directed at him and immediately understands that the person standing before him is Sanjo Rei, Hiro's younger sister and one of the four main heroines of the game. In Rei's route, the narrative focuses heavily on the internal conflict over succession within the Sanjo family. Unlike the other routes, this one presents Hiro as a cunning figure who treats his younger sister harshly. As the story progresses into its second arc, Rei eventually kills Hiro through manipulative means. The MC always agrees that the in-game hero deserves that fate because of his own actions, but now that he has become Hiro himself, he absolutely does not want the story to move toward that same outcome. After some time on the road, the limousine finally arrives at a certain location. The MC, still acting as Hiro, assumes that he has been placed somewhere in the middle of the storyline, because it would be unlikely for all relationships to reset just because of a reincarnation. From Rei's expression alone, he finds no trace of affection, which convinces him to take the safest approach possible so that she does not grow irritated with him. Rei instructs Hiro to behave more politely. She reminds him that even though he is nothing more than a decorative presence within the family, he still stands as a representative of the Sanjo household. The MC interprets this as an immediate warning shot. If he is ignored coldly, it might even resemble Hiro's usual behavior, which could help him avoid suspicion for now. Wanting to shift the atmosphere, he decides to compliment Rei, describing her as a beautiful and exceptionally kind girl. The words escape before he can stop them, and he instantly recognizes that he has spoken too honestly. Trying to recover, he takes out a bandage and gently attaches it to the back of Rei's hand. Rei questions the purpose of this unexpected gesture. Hiro explains that it is a repayment for the handkerchief she previously handed him so he could wipe the blood from his injured face. He also mentions that he noticed her hand looked hurt earlier. The skin appeared red, and she seemed to wince when adjusting her wristwatch. He adds that she might not feel comfortable attending an important event with her hand in that condition. Rei grows increasingly confused by his behavior. Hiro clarifies that he is merely showing normal concern for her well-being, emphasizing that her elegant hands are something important for her future as a young woman. His words only deepen Rei's confusion. Meanwhile, the bodyguards react with alarm, distressed that Hiro has given Rei something they consider cheap and inappropriate. They attempt to remove the bandage and replace it with something more suitable, but Rei refuses. She knows that Hiro, known for his teasing nature, almost never does anything like this, so she chooses to keep the bandage as a small personal keepsake. Seeing her accept the gesture, Hiro interprets her reaction as a positive sign. He begins to feel more confident, believing his quick thinking has worked in his favor. He further adds that the gesture is not a joke, claiming that paying taxes and protecting Yuri relationships are duties of every Japanese citizen. One of the bodyguards immediately suggests that Hiro should seek medical evaluation, while Rei decides this situation is wasting her time. She then instructs the bodyguards to leave with her, ending the moment and moving on. They enter a luxurious building filled with an impressive number of guests, and the MC, still acting as Hiro, cannot help feeling overwhelmed by the scale of the event. As he takes in the atmosphere, he notices that seeing girls openly dating other girls is treated as something entirely ordinary here. Couples embrace freely in public without attracting attention. To him, the sight feels like a paradise, a clear confirmation that this world truly operates under the same rules as Esco. He also notices that men exist in this society, yet they function only as background elements, similar to stones by the roadside or carbon dioxide in the air. Hiro himself occupies the same status. Although he is technically the son of the main Sanjo family, Rei is the one destined to become the family's successor. Hiro, meanwhile, is present only to fulfill a formal requirement, which is why not a single person greets him or acknowledges his existence. He finds this completely reasonable because his presence is merely decorative. While drinking, Hiro notices Rei subtly trying to conceal the bandage he placed on her hand. He wonders whether this reaction means her affection toward him might be decreasing. As he reaches for a sandwich, a small child suddenly swings an object toward his hand, nearly stabbing him. The unexpected attack startles him, leaving him shocked and irritated. He feels justified in his annoyance because the child's reckless action is genuinely dangerous. Before he can fully process his frustration, someone calls out to him. He turns and realizes the person addressing him is his great-grandmother, the oldest member of the Sanjo family, and the one silently manipulating everything behind the scenes. She instructs him to enroll in Hoju Magic Academy starting next year. Hiro becomes confused about why he, of all people, must attend. His great-grandmother, however, asserts that he has no right to refuse. Hoju Academy is the central setting of Esco, which means he might eventually encounter the protagonist there. His great-grandmother observes his relaxed expression and concludes that he has not yet grasped the gravity of the situation. As Hiro looks around, he senses an overwhelming murderous intent emanating from many of the people in the room. Their expressions seem to carry a silent desire to kill him. His great-grandmother explains that he previously demanded money from various branch families while falsely using the authority of the Sanjo name. Numerous reports claim he pressured them aggressively, resulting in a level of hatred so intense that no one would object if he were killed. The MC realizes that even outside the game's scripted events, Hiro is still an awful person whose behavior has brought him to this dangerous point. His great-grandmother continues by stating that sending him to Hoju Academy will allow him to learn magic and live independently, enabling him to recover some dignity. With the main Sanjo family supporting him, she assures him that no one would dare to harm him. However, the MC finds this explanation unconvincing. In his understanding, this plan mirrors the scenario he remembers from the game, where placing Hiro in the academy makes it easier for the family to eliminate him. Even though she appears to be supporting him, the MC feels her intentions are deceptive, and he cannot determine what her true motives are. From the events of the banquet alone, the MC reaches a clear conclusion. Sanjo Hiro possesses the same death flags that exist in the original game. The great-grandmother and numerous branch families display a genuine desire to kill him. Rei's affection level is also extremely low, although she has not shown any intent to eliminate him yet. Based on these observations, the MC becomes convinced that if he allows everything to proceed naturally, Hiro will be murdered exactly as in the original storyline. He makes up his mind that he must somehow avoid this fate. However, he has yet to determine an effective plan, especially since Hiro's death in the game involves more than just the Sanjo family. Other characters contribute to that outcome as well. Because of this, he realizes he must take the initiative from this point forward, acting before anyone else moves against him. While Hiro is deep in thought, he suddenly senses an intent to kill directed at him. The realization strikes him immediately. An assassination team has arrived. The MC, still inhabiting Hiro's body, becomes curious about the identity of the young woman in a maid uniform who approaches him. He does not recognize her from the game's character roster, leading him to assume that she must be an ordinary NPC created only to fill the background of this world. The maid looks visibly upset, perhaps feeling that she has failed at something. Hiro wonders what her purpose here is, and she reveals that she has been instructed by his great-grandmother to deliver a magic device. Only then does Hiro fully understand what his great-grandmother meant when she claimed to be supporting him. Her so-called support is the delivery of that device. In the world of Esco, magic can only be activated through specific tools. The device handed to him is called Kukumasamian, a unique artifact that can only be obtained from Hiro if someone kills him and takes it by force. Anyone who equips the device will immediately fall into a bad route, unable to build romantic links with any heroine. Because of this, the MC never used the device for long when he played the game. However, he knows very well that Kukumasamian itself is actually powerful. The maid observes Hiro with a puzzled expression, possibly confused about why the blade she expects to see is missing. Hiro explains that the blade is created entirely through magic. He feels relieved that the activation spell is still stored within the device, believing he can show off a little by using it. Yet when he attempts to summon its true form, the magic blade fails to appear. Confusion grows as he tries to understand what is wrong. A status screen then manifests in front of him, revealing the device's internal condition. The MC learns that the interface is severely damaged. In its current state, the magic sword cannot be activated at all. There are many problems listed, but the most critical one is the lack of combat capability. To fix this, he needs to increase its output, and the only way to do that is by going into a dungeon. Just as he prepares to leave, the maid stops him. He expresses his gratitude for her assistance and excuses himself, insisting that he intends to take a walk outside at night. He slips out through the back door, but the maid follows him closely. Meanwhile, he decides that his first stop should be a convenience store. Hearing this, the maid mutters an insult toward him, calling him foolish. Irritation rises within Hiro, especially since he dislikes being mocked. Wanting to shift the conversation, Hiro suddenly asks whether there is a girl the maid likes. The maid becomes confused, unsure whether he is giving a lecture or trying to start a story about romance. Hiro continues pressing the topic, admitting he is interested in hearing her Yuri-related situation. The maid eventually realizes he is indeed steering the conversation toward love. Before addressing that, the maid clarifies her earlier insult. According to her, it is not random at all. It is payback because Hiro once bullied one of her fellow maids. She even challenges him to fire her if he wants, stating she is not afraid of losing her position. The MC finds himself annoyed again, thinking about how effortlessly the original Hiro managed to disgust him every single time. Recognizing his own wrongs, Hiro decides to take responsibility. He apologizes sincerely and expresses his intention to apologize directly to the maid he once mistreated. The maid is visibly surprised by this unexpected admission. Hiro asks her to relay the message, explaining that it is already late at night and meeting the person tomorrow will be acceptable. Hiro proceeds toward the administrative sector of the Tokyo area, intending to enter the facility that manages the region. As he approaches the entrance, a floating cubic security guardian intercepts him and requests his entry permit. After a brief moment of verification, the guardian recognizes him as a member of the Sanjo family. It explains that it has already received prior instructions, allowing Hiro to pass without undergoing any additional checks. Hiro immediately suspects that this, too, is part of his great-grandmother's influence and preparation. A magical gate materializes soon after, accompanied by a welcoming system voice that signals his entry into a dungeon. These dungeons function as anomalous points scattered across various parts of the world, each serving as a passage to an alternate realm inhabited by dangerous creatures. Hiro steps through the gate and enters the Tokyo sector, specifically the abandoned line station dungeon. He understands that what matters now is simply stepping inside, because the real battles begin from this point forward. Unexpectedly, the same maid from earlier follows him into the dungeon. Her sudden appearance prompts Hiro to wonder why she is accompanying him, and he again thinks about asking her name. The maid, however, seems more interested in questioning his motives. She speculates in an exaggerated manner, assuming he entered the dungeon because he has grown bored with human women and is now considering developing an interest in monsters. Hiro realizes she still refuses to answer his questions directly. He begins explaining his situation regarding Hujin Magic Academy, and he points out that leaving things unchanged means he will be unable to use Kukumasamune at all. Because of this, he intends to defeat monsters to collect drop items that could repair the damaged console. At the same time, he can gather experience points to prepare for future conflicts. The maid clarifies that physical attacks are ineffective against monsters unless they are infused with magic, and such magic can only be activated through a device. She asks whether a standard console can be purchased using score points. Hiro answers that he cannot buy one, but he suddenly remembers that the device allows him to view his score status. In the world of ESCO, every action, achievements, contributions, daily behavior, and overall societal value is recorded numerically as score. Higher numbers translate into higher ranks, which grant better privileges and access to more resources. When Hiro checks his total accumulated score, the number displayed is 0. The result shocks him, and frustration quickly follows as he reviews the long list of reasons that reduced his score to nothing. The maid reminds him that in this region, all payments rely on score, meaning that even purchasing basic necessities becomes difficult. Acquiring an expensive console is nearly impossible. Hiro adds that with 0 score, he cannot use Kukumasamune at all, so he plans to rely on a wooden club instead. The maid finds it surprising that even an item as simple as a wooden club is available for purchase, but she also admits she is not shocked that Hiro's score is 0. Hiro feels the need to defend himself, insisting it is not entirely his fault. The maid grows suspicious, explaining that the Hiro she knows never trains, never takes responsibility, and certainly never apologizes to anyone. She begins questioning whether he is truly Hiro or someone else entirely. To address her doubt, Hiro explains that his apology might have startled her, yet every change in behavior must begin somewhere. He mentions having once seen Hyakkaheim and describes how the encounter left his mind empty, though he eventually grew accustomed to it. As he observes her reactions, Hiro wonders whether he has managed to conceal the truth well enough. Despite assuming she is merely a background character in this world, he decides he cannot afford to let his guard down around her. A small knight suddenly appears, and the MC immediately considers it a fairly heavy opponent for a first encounter. Even so, the MC still believes that a single enemy of that size can be handled slowly and carefully. The situation shifts instantly when multiple small knights materialize at once, forming a crowd that surrounds them. The maid recognizes the danger first, and concludes that the situation is becoming unfavorable. Hiro feels confused about why he is suddenly being overwhelmed like this, and the maid urges him to retreat before the number of enemies increases further. Before they manage to step back, a woman appears out of nowhere and orders both Hiro and the maid to move aside. She proceeds to annihilate every small knight with overwhelming force, clearing the area in a matter of moments. When she finishes, she studies Hiro and the maid, questioning whether the two of them are beginners inside the dungeon. Hiro immediately recognizes her and wonders why someone like her would be in a place like this. The woman, Lapis Cruel Lalamet, is one of the 4 main heroines. She is an elf princess from a nation far wealthier than the Sanjo family. Technically, she is not a character Hiro should be able to meet before entering the academy, and the MC personally does not want to encounter her this early in the storyline. She is known as the girl with the highest execution rate toward Hiro in the entire world of ESCO. The MC remembers clearly that Hiro once lost his life simply for eating her stored ice cream. Lapis explains that she helps out of reflex, but she hesitates once she realizes that Hiro is a boy. She begins questioning whether she should have assisted him in the first place. Her expression shifts when she finally notices Hiro's total score, which displays an absolute 0. She then advises him to return home immediately, and even offers to escort him to the entrance to ensure he does not get killed on the way out. Hiro responds by deciding to follow her advice and head back, but Lapis stops him, demanding that he wait instead of running away so casually. She questions whether Hiro understands how dangerous his current situation is. Hiro insists that he does and asks her not to follow him, claiming that staying near her only increases the chance of him dying. Lapis reacts by questioning who Hiro thinks she is. Hiro becomes flustered, blurts out a careless description of her, and unintentionally labels her as an elf wearing clothing similar to something indecent. Lapis becomes irritated and insists that she is wearing formal attire, instructing Hiro not to look at her body so directly. Hiro is shocked by her reaction. Lapis then mentions that her total score is 30,000, making her far above average. She advises Hiro to ask for help politely if he needs anything. The MC personally enjoys the way Lapis casually jokes and interacts with the protagonist in the original storyline, but the atmosphere becomes awkward when she directs similar energy toward Hiro, who now functions as the MC's in-world identity. Because Hiro stays silent, Lapis assumes he fails to understand her point and challenges him to a duel. The maid immediately steps in front of Hiro, apologizing on his behalf and promising to scold him in private. Hiro declares that he accepts the duel and sets a condition. If he wins, he requests Lapis's console. Lapis confidently responds that if she loses, Hiro may take everything she possesses, though she firmly believes defeat is impossible. Hiro hands his wooden club to the maid and asks her to hold it for a moment. The maid becomes alarmed and reminds him that Lapis is a famous archer, advising him to withdraw from the duel entirely. Hiro responds calmly, knowing full well what Lapis is capable of. He has experienced countless moments of trial and error in attempts to defeat her in the past, and he believes that knowledge gives him an edge. The maid is utterly confused by his reasoning. Lapis instructs him to use the club or any other tool if he wishes. As a handicap, she promises not to move from her current spot and grants him 10 seconds to attack her however he wants. Hiro steps forward with determination, prompting Lapis to consider him reckless for charging carelessly. In that moment, she notices something crucial. Hiro has forgotten to equip his device. One of the main reasons Hiro desires Lapis's console is because it is an exceptionally rare device, but more importantly, he knows that her console can be mounted onto his Kukumasamian. With that in mind, he makes up his mind to acquire it no matter what methods he must use. He understands that Lapis is easily provoked, highly reactive, and possesses specifications far superior to most people. She is not suited for close combat, yet her baseline stats place her well above the average, making her far from weak. A frontal battle against her leaves his chances nearly non-existent. Even so, Hiro believes that Lapis would never attack someone unarmed, and he uses that assumption to build his plan. At the first opportunity, Hiro quickly grabs Lapis's console and swaps it with his own broken one before she notices. He then pushes Lapis slightly, causing her to interpret the gesture as mockery, which immediately triggers her temper. She decides she will no longer restrain herself. When she reaches for her console to fight back, she discovers that the device no longer functions. Meanwhile, Hiro attaches her console to his sword, allowing his weapon to activate properly. Hiro acknowledges internally that Lapis is undeniably strong, but he also notes a consistent trait. Once something occurs outside her expectations, she freezes momentarily. He concludes that her old habits remain unchanged. Using that opening, Hiro launches a sudden attack that catches her completely off guard. He declares victory, but Lapis refuses to accept it because she notices that Hiro's own device is technically unusable. Hiro explains that the device currently working in his hands functions only because he is using her console. He clarifies that he borrowed her console for a moment when passing by her, and that the broken one she is holding now is actually his. Lapis accuses him of cheating. While this exchange happens, the maid continues fighting off stray small knights using the wooden club. Hiro insists that concepts such as fairness or unfairness do not exist in real combat. He also states that there is no rule forbidding the removal of an opponent's console during a fight. In his view, Lapis is at fault for underestimating her opponent and carelessly holding back. When Lapis falls silent, Hiro assumes she has no further complaints and reminds her of her promise. He is entitled to take all her items. Lapis becomes emotional, frustrated, and eventually begins to cry, prompting Hiro to reconsider. He decides to take only a single item instead. The maid, who witnesses the situation, comments that Hiro is acting differently than usual. She prepares herself mentally to punish Hiro as a form of apology for his behavior. Hiro becomes uneasy when he sees the maid's wooden club soaked in blood. She explains calmly that she has been dealing with multiple small knights approaching during the duel. Seeing that Lapis is still crying, Hiro panics. He knows how easily she can kill him if he missteps. To calm her down, he returns the console to its rightful owner, and Lapis begins to settle. Hiro expresses gratitude for her guidance, and then prepares to leave with the maid. Before he can depart, Lapis demands another duel, this time with complete seriousness. Hiro immediately refuses. He admits to himself that he managed to win earlier only by relying on a combination of luck and timing. Still, he feels relieved that he successfully avoids Lapis's bad route and manages to reactivate his Kukumasamian. All of this becomes possible because the MC has completed Esco in his previous life. With that knowledge, he plans to avoid every death flag and live as a version of Hiro who stays out of the heroine's Yuri entanglements, giving them space to pursue their relationships freely. Hiro apologizes and surrenders, openly admitting defeat. Lapis refuses to accept that outcome and suspects he is intentionally losing on purpose. She draws her bow and insists that Hiro face her seriously. Meanwhile, Hiro pleads for mercy, fearing the very real possibility that she might kill him. As a result, he is more than ready to surrender entirely. Inside the Deadline Station dungeon of the Tokyo area, Hiro continues cutting down waves of small monsters using the Kukumasamian, which is now equipped with the console he seized in his duel with Lapis. He moves quickly between groups of enemies, focusing on gathering as much experience as possible and securing useful drop items. Only a day has passed since his sudden reincarnation, and he immediately resumes exploring deeper into the dungeon. As long as he has the Kukumasamian, the journey becomes noticeably easier, and because of that he feels genuinely grateful toward Lapis. He also feels satisfied that the consoles he has collected so far are finally usable. Hiro eventually reaches the deepest floor of the Deadline Station dungeon. Once he arrives, he decides it is time to activate proper strengthening magic. As he turns around, he finds the maid standing close behind him, which makes him wonder why she followed him again. The maid admits she has never gone this deep into a dungeon before. Hiro mentions that he already apologized to the maid's friend earlier and asks whether there is still some unresolved issue. She says nothing at first and simply pouts in silence before urging Hiro to look toward one of the platform pillars. When he looks in the direction she indicates, he discovers Lapis hiding behind that very pillar. Hiro becomes confused and calls out to her. Lapis responds by acting as if she is meeting him for the first time today. Since they have encountered each other there, she expresses her intention to challenge Hiro to another duel, but Hiro immediately rejects the idea. He already understands the reason behind Lapis's insistence. She wants revenge for yesterday's defeat. Because Hiro continues turning down the duel, Lapis shifts the topic and questions how he even managed to enter the dungeon in the first place. With a score of 0, the management normally would not grant him entry. Hiro explains that he has internal connections and that those ties allow him to bypass the normal approval process. In reality, entering any dungeon requires an official permit from the governing organization, but due to the Sanjo family's influence, he can access it without difficulty. Hiro reiterates that yesterday's duel is already settled. He also reminds Lapis that, as an elf princess, being seen talking with a boy while dressed in revealing clothing would be extremely risky for her reputation. Lapis counters that losing repeatedly to someone with a score of 0 is far worse for her than being spotted with a boy. To her, being seen with a male is about as trivial as noticing an insect passing by. Hiro interprets that comparison literally and considers himself equivalent to an insect, which he believes should make the situation harmless. Lapis clarifies that looking down on boys is a normal custom for her, and not anything she specifically directs at Hiro. She adds that she does not harbor any excessive prejudice against him. Hiro takes it as an unexpected honor that he is able to converse casually with someone like Lapis. She, however, states that no matter how much reputation, humility, or pretended politeness is mentioned, she will not give up on the duel easily. Hiro realizes she will not stop following him, leading him to remark internally that she behaves like someone from a warrior tribe. Lapis then tells him to take his position quickly. Seeing that he cannot avoid this any longer, Hiro accepts his fate and prepares himself, deciding that he will let Lapis hit him until she is satisfied. Although Lapis places herself in a ready stance, she reflects that she has no particular interest in bullying someone weaker than herself. However, the way Hiro fought yesterday remains stuck in her mind, and because of that lingering impression, she is determined to confront him again here in the depths of the dungeon. From the darkened chamber ahead, a massive greatsword suddenly emerges, cutting through the shadows with overwhelming force. The moment Hiro notices it, he instinctively moves closer to Lapis. She misinterprets his movement, assuming he is attempting another underhanded surprise attack, and reacts with immediate suspicion. Before she can accuse him further, Hiro raises his voice and urges her to lower herself. He then lifts her into his arms and directs his Kukumasamyan toward the source of the incoming threat. As he steadies himself, he finally sees the figure wielding the enormous sword. It is an exceptionally rare encounter, one of the sudden dungeon events that occasionally appear, where the system throws a powerful enemy far beyond the expected difficulty. The towering knight-type monster is clad entirely in Geist armor. Hiro remembers that creatures like this are vengeful spirits formed from the accumulated hatred of fallen knight-type monsters. He also suspects that this particular one materializes because Lapis exterminated an overwhelming number of petit knights the previous day. Lapis then insists that Hiro put her down, claiming that she can stand on her own. Hiro apologizes and releases her carefully. He notices that her waist is still weak, making it difficult for her to support her body. Yet he knows mentioning this would only provoke her irritation, so he chooses to stay quiet. The monster, of course, does not wait for Lapis to recover. Hiro immediately tells the maid to head toward the exit first. The maid, already anticipating the danger, states that she is leaving without needing any instruction. Hiro finds the Geist armor especially troublesome due to its abnormally high defense, made worse by Lapis's weakened state. He considers that escaping might be the best strategy for now. He connects his console, generates a magical surface layer, transmutes muscle and bone, strengthens his nerves and optic channels, and activates the layered formulas. He initiates Tenebrae, a projection enhancement spell used for retreating. Lapis is startled when she sees him employ Tenebrae. In the world of Esco, magic exists only through specific console combinations, and Hiro manages to activate it because he previously obtained a magic layer drop item. He urges Lapis to run with him because the monster is overwhelmingly strong. The dungeon system prevents monsters from pursuing intruders into different floors, so retreating remains a viable option, at least in theory. However, the armored knight suddenly hurls its giant shield across the chamber, shattering the exit in a single impact. Hiro realizes the situation is becoming much more troublesome. With escape no longer possible, he decides they must confront the monster directly. Lapis struggles to push herself upright and surprisingly finds that she can stand again. She questions whether they can still run, but Hiro calculates that he will deplete his mana long before a successful escape becomes possible. He also notes that no dimension gate has appeared for a safe exit, meaning he cannot simply ignore this ironclad threat. Hiro then proposes continuing their duel with the monster itself as the stake. If Lapis manages to defeat it, she wins. Lapis immediately recognizes the impossibility of overcoming such a creature. Hiro taunts her, pointing out that someone with a score of 30,000 should not lose her courage so easily. As expected, the provocation ignites Lapis's competitive nature. She considers Hiro outrageous, yet she still admits she cannot move freely. Hiro offers to act as her support, positioning himself as her foothold so she can strike the monster directly in the face. Lapis points out that cooperating like this technically stops it from being a duel, but Hiro claims that the interpretation depends entirely on her perspective. As someone with a score of 0, he does not know the finer rules of dueling, but what matters to him is preventing her from dying here. Lapis demands to know what he truly means by this. Hiro responds only with a sharp, confident grin, signaling that he is ready to follow through with whatever reckless plan he has in mind. Hiro lifts Lapis into his arms, and Lapis immediately takes control of their movements, guiding him with sharp instructions while trying to maintain her composure. They move in unison toward the towering monster, coordinating their attacks as best as they can despite the clear disadvantage. After several attempts, both of them realize that striking the monster's armor is almost pointless because its outer shell is far too durable to break through with direct force. Recognizing this, Hero shifts his strategy. He directs Lapis to focus her attacks on the narrow openings between the pieces of armor, hoping that precise strikes will have a greater impact. Lapis follows his assessment and aims for those gaps, channeling all her remaining strength toward the weak points hidden beneath the metallic layers. Their efforts begin to show small but meaningful results, yet the damage they inflict remains insufficient to bring the monster down. Seeing this, Hero decides to assist Lapis in a more aggressive way. He positions her for a better angle and suddenly throws her toward the monster, a move that catches her completely off guard. Lapis lands perfectly atop the creature's head, balancing herself as she prepares to strike again. At the same moment, Hero continues attacking the exposed joints and crevices of the armor, forcing the monster into repeated staggered reactions. Their combined assault becomes relentless, each hit pushing the creature closer to its limit. Lapis then unleashes the final blow with all the strength she can muster, and the monster collapses into ruins, defeated at last. Hero sinks to the ground after the battle, watching the remains of the fallen creature scatter across the dungeon floor. Lapis runs toward him, filled with exhilaration from their victory, and wraps her arms around him with genuine joy. She feels triumphant and relieved, yet she still wonders whether Hero truly has a score of 0. Hero begins to sway, overwhelmed by the massive amount of mana he has expended, and eventually he collapses from exhaustion. While struggling to stay conscious, he states that the outcome is now clear. This victory belongs entirely to Lapis, because without her contribution, defeating that monster would have been impossible. Lapis responds with her own assessment, believing that it is also thanks to Hero that she does not have to deal with the trouble of reporting his death. She remains confused, however, because Hero has carried absolute confidence in her since the beginning, even at the cost of letting himself get beaten up. She questions where that unwavering faith comes from. Hero explains that relying on her is only natural, considering that her score is 30,000. Before they can say anything more, the maid arrives and urges them to defeat the boss on the deepest floor, since the dimension gate lies inside the boss's chamber. Lapis agrees and invites Hero to come along, but Hero, still weakened, asks her to go on ahead because he has reached his limit. Lapis pauses and asks for Hero's name. He gives the false name Yamada Taro, which confuses the maid, but she chooses to support his lie without hesitation. Lapis laughs lightly at the name, remarking on how unusual it sounds for a guy. Hero internally feels relieved, believing that by using a fake name, the event chain involving Lapis should now be resolved. The maid, still committed to her role, warns Lapis not to get too close to Taro because he is supposedly a shameless flirt who enjoys teasing women. Lapis casually adds that his score is 0 as well. Hero watches the two interact and is surprised by how quickly they become comfortable with each other despite meeting only the day before. He begins to suspect that Lapis and the maid are using him merely as a convenient excuse to spend time together. This realization unexpectedly amuses him. For the first time, he feels like he is witnessing the atmosphere of a true Yuri game, and he privately celebrates having encountered his first real pairing. Seeing Hero behave oddly, Lapis wonders whether he is alright, and the maid explains that Hero occasionally falls into strange moods like this. Lapis then moves on to defeat the boss at the lowest floor with a single overwhelming attack, clearing the path for all of them. With the boss eliminated and the dimension gate active, they finally manage to escape the dungeon safely. A few days later, Hero returns to his usual routine, continuing the habit he maintains every morning, jogging at a steady pace as part of his daily training. It is something he has been doing long before his reincarnation, and it remains a constant part of his lifestyle even now. While running along the familiar route, he accidentally bumps into a girl. The impact causes her to fall forward and land on top of another girl who happens to be right in front of her. The first girl quickly apologizes, while the second one brushes the incident off and even seems pleased rather than bothered. Every morning, Hero, or the MC, keeps jogging like this, a practice he still considers essential. Even in a world shaped like a Yuri game, endurance remains important because physical capability influences how well one can handle battles and unexpected encounters. In ESCO, the strength of a magic user depends either on personal ability or on the character's numerical status. For Hero, stamina stands out as his most prominent attribute on his status screen, making physical exercises especially relevant to him. In contrast, mana is the most critical resource for anyone relying on magic. Even if one owns an excellent device, low mana results in weak output and rapid exhaustion. Raising one's score is another method that can increase status values. But even though Hero defeated a rare monster several days ago, his score remains at 0, making that path effectively useless for him. Because of this, he decides to abandon that idea altogether. The only reliable way left to increase his mana is through consistent practice. Hero attempts a training method that combines running with body reinforcement magic, hoping to improve both mana efficiency and physical coordination. Unfortunately, his mana supply is too depleted today, so he resigns himself to ordinary jogging without magical enhancement. Along the route, Hero notices long-eared elf mobs. Their presence makes him feel uneasy because they appear to be watching him with curiosity. A moment later, he spots the maid hiding awkwardly behind an electric pole. Hero immediately recognizes her, though she tries to deny her identity by claiming to be a different maid entirely. He easily sees through the disguise and assumes she is simply joking. Hero understands why the maid might be trying to hide, but he cannot decipher the reason the elves keep staring at him, as if discussing something unusual about him. Their coordinated presence feels strange, almost as though they are observing him deliberately. He eventually heads home, feeling warm from the exercise and wanting something to drink. When he steps inside, he is unexpectedly greeted by the sight of Lapis wearing her casual indoor clothes. She immediately scolds him for running for 2 hours straight. She explains that she has been waiting outside and would have continued waiting if not for her guards who intervened. Hero, shocked by her presence in his home, asks why she is here in the first place. Lapis explains that Hero's personal information is very easy to find because there are not many nobles with the unusual combination of low score and dungeon access. Despite his 0 score, he still manages to smile confidently and lie without hesitation. Hero finds the situation even stranger because he has no idea how Lapis managed to enter the house. She reveals that the maid let her in, and Hero only then realizes the maid has already returned home. The maid still holds a grudge against him for discovering her disguise earlier. Hero begins to suspect that the elves he encountered on the jogging route are actually Lapis's bodyguards. Lapis confirms that they are Alf, elite royal guards from the elf kingdom of Alfheim, and they serve as her personal protection unit. Hero recalls that this same group appears in the game as well, a squad of 12 beautiful elf warriors who normally only show up when Lapis is under attack. In the game, any male character who approaches Lapis during such moments usually gets overwhelmed by them immediately. Lapis notices Hero drifting into his imagination and assumes he is thinking strange thoughts. She reassures him that the Alpha are only accompanying her and that she simply has personal matters to settle. Hero asks what those matters are, prompting Lapis to inquire about the location of his room. He tells her it is in the corner of the 2nd floor. She responds by mentioning her preference for corners too, and then casually reveals that her room is right next to his. Hero is left bewildered and asks again why she is here. He also insists that she should return home because, according to basic moral lessons, it is improper for a girl to enter a guy's house so casually. Lapis states calmly that she is beginning to live here starting today. Hero is stunned. She explains that since they worked together previously and achieved a tangible result, she has decided that living with Hero will make it easier to continue their duels. She also warns him not to run away from her. Lapis recognizes the name Hero as belonging to the Sanjo family. Hero begins to think Lapis is acting completely unreasonable. Meanwhile, in another place, a girl observes the situation and finds Lapis's behavior strange, especially the fact that Lapis wants a rematch against an opponent who turns out to be a human boy. This revelation sparks her competitive interest. She recognizes that Lapis's opponent is none other than Sanjo Hero. On this particular day, Lapis and her 12 Alpha guards begin settling into Hero's house. The Alpha immediately regard the place as small compared to the accommodations they are accustomed to, even though the property is undeniably spacious by ordinary standards. Lapis relies on Hero to help carry her luggage, and Hiro reluctantly assists while trying to understand how his life has shifted into something unexpectedly chaotic. Although he currently lives alone in this large residence, he knows that the house will eventually belong to Rei, the heir of the Sanjo family. Despite its size, Hiro has never managed to make full use of the space. A pavilion and a pond sit quietly in front of the house, features that would impress most guests, but now serve only as reminders of how empty the property usually feels. For a brief moment, Hiro imagines sharing his burdens with someone else. The thought crosses his mind that perhaps someone might willingly volunteer to live alongside a group of beautiful elf warriors. But in reality, no one has ever requested such a thing. The elves loudly occupy the house, creating constant commotion as they race through hallways and argue over which rooms they want. One elf becomes absorbed in observing the paintings lining the walls, while Hiro continues hauling their belongings through doorways and up staircases. As he works, Hiro remembers that the Alpha unit is supposed to consist of one additional member assigned to protect Lapis. He has not seen this person anywhere. The thought lingers in his mind as he resumes carrying more items. Meanwhile, the elves show no hesitation, living as though the home is already theirs. One even bathes comfortably and calls out for Hiro to bring her shampoo. When Hiro opens the bathroom door and unexpectedly finds two elf women bathing inside, he reacts with a neutral expression. His lack of surprise confuses them, since they have only heard rumors that Hiro is some sort of playboy. Their assumptions do not align with the calm demeanor he displays. Unbeknownst to him, one elf quietly observes his movements from a distance, watching how he manages the chaos. Eventually, Lapis calls for Hiro and asks for a moment of his time. She wants to understand the household rules so that she and the Alpha can adapt properly. As she explores the house, she notes the location of the tatami room and realizes that although she prefers that space, she cannot sleep unless she has an actual bed. She discovers that both suitable rooms happen to be in the corner of the second floor, exactly where Hiro's room is located. She intends to switch rooms with him. Before she can say more, Hiro instinctively retreats toward the back of the house. Lapis assumes that agreeing to the room exchange would benefit Hiro as well, especially because the Alpha would assist with the move. While she continues discussing this possibility, Hiro rushes outside. Behind the house, he attempts to activate his physical reinforcement again, but finds himself unable to. The sensation leaves him wondering what kind of development he has stumbled into, because it feels strangely similar to the kind of opening scene found in a game event. He questions why so many major events seem to revolve around him specifically. The memory of Lapis casually proposing that she live together with him resurfaces, a suggestion he still finds entirely unreasonable. He decides to leave that problem for later. Hiro recalls that according to how these events usually unfold, an administrator character should be accompanying Lapis and the Alpha. Yet even after checking multiple times during the moving process, he has not seen the admin anywhere. He begins to suspect that the admin might appear during dinner. A glance at his watch reveals that evening is approaching, prompting him to prepare a luxurious meal for Lapis and the Alpha. He also decides that when the admin finally shows up, he should present himself as someone who gets along well with Lapis. At some point, Hiro finds himself standing in the garden without realizing how he ended up there. He assumes that by following the jogging path, he should still be able to return to the villa where Lapis previously stayed before dinner begins. Meanwhile, Lapis steps outside, intending to search for Hiro. The Alpha asks about her purpose, and Hiro becomes certain there must be a predictable pattern at play, one where Lapis inevitably appears from that very direction. As Hiro tries to find his way back home through the jogging trail, he becomes increasingly uncertain about the route he is taking. In the middle of that confusion, someone suddenly appears from behind, approaching him with the assumption that Hiro is the powerful individual who manages to defeat Lapis. This person inspects Hiro's status and score, immediately noticing how low they are, yet still recalls that Lapis, who hates losing more than anything, acknowledges Hiro. Because of that, the newcomer decides to judge Hiro's strength directly, believing that no one surpasses their own power. Hiro wonders why this person is even here, in such an unexpected place. The individual introduces themselves as a Stemmel Cruel La Curlicia, and their presence is clearly motivated by a growing interest in Hiro. A Stemmel serves as Lapis's guardian as well as her instructor, and is known throughout the elven nation of Alfheim as the strongest fighter among all elves. Within the world of Esco, Astemel appears only briefly at the beginning of Lapis's route as a support character. Even with such minimal presence, Astemel is established as Hiro's enemy, someone who eliminates him without hesitation. In the game, Astemel kills Hiro easily, treating him as nothing more than an insect approaching Lapis with ill intent. Now, the greatest taboo in Hiro's life stands directly in front of him. Astemel suddenly demands a fight, but Hiro refuses. He explains that his previous victory is nothing more than luck, made possible only because he switches Lapis's console. MC immediately senses that Astemel's demeanor feels different from before. Without warning, Astemel orders Hiro to prepare himself, and Hiro senses a genuine killing intent radiating from Astemel. Astemel launches a sudden attack. Hiro blocks it using Tenebrae, managing to defend against the strike despite being hit hard afterward. Had he failed to block it, he would be sliced in half. Astemel becomes impressed that Hiro can evade such an attack, while Hiro, on the other hand, is even more astonished after realizing that Astemel is only using a tree branch. Astemel drops the branch and decides to continue the assault with actual blades. In the world of Esco, players unanimously consider Astemel the strongest character. Elves typically specialize in long-range combat, excelling in mana and agility, but lacking in stamina and physical strength. Astemel, however, surpasses every elf and every character in all attributes, with the highest stat growth in the entire game and no weaknesses in any area of combat. To MC, Astemel is practically a cheat character. Astemel draws 2 swords and urges Hiro to continue the duel. Unlike Lapis, Astemel cannot be fooled by simple tricks. With shocking speed, Astemel immediately reappears behind Hiro and attacks, forcing Hiro into a frantic defense. MC finds Astemel's idea of a warm-up completely unreasonable. When Hiro manages to block another strike, his device breaks apart, confirming MC's belief that no normal person should be able to parry that attack. Astemel evaluates Hiro's performance as perfect up to this point and declares the warm-up concluded. A swift kick sends Hiro backward. As Hiro steps away, he sees Astemel shifting into the stance of an II technique. Astemel silently challenges Hiro to withstand the next strike. Hiro runs, convinced that the incoming attack will kill him. He recognizes the stance as the administrator's signature-ready position, something that guarantees a one-hit slaughter if faced head-on. Hiro knows Astemel will never accept surrender, driven by an obsession with battle. Caught between an unwinnable fight and an unavoidable defeat, Hiro realizes that his only option is to escape without losing. Astemel suddenly activates a console warp, shocking Hiro because a close-range fighter should not have the ability to teleport. Hiro concludes that this is pure cheating, yet protesting is pointless against someone like Astemel. With escape becoming impossible, Hiro decides his only chance of survival is to evade that lightning-fast attack. If there is any opening to win, it exists only because Astemel continues to restrain his true power. Hiro notices that Astemel is not using a device at all, but a simple Japanese sword. Panic strikes him when Astemel teleports again. Still, if Astemel is fighting without a device, it means he cannot fully resist Hiro's magic. Hiro releases his device's blinding light, forcing Astemel to avert his eyes and dodge the incoming magical emission. Without clear vision, Astemel cannot make a clean strike. Astemel expresses admiration for Hiro, noting that Hiro manages to blind him at the very last second, forcing Astemel to use more strength than expected. Hiro feels insulted, knowing that for someone like Astemel, his magical weapon means almost nothing. Yet Astemel continues praising Hiro for limiting the slash to only that extent. Hiro becomes confused about Astemel's intent, until he realizes that Astemel has quietly cut his face during the exchange. Astemel calmly concludes that Hiro has already responded to each of his attacks with everything he has. With that in mind, Astemel decides that it is time to repay Hiro's efforts by showing his true strength. Hiro immediately assumes that Astemel will finally use a proper device. Before Hiro can prepare himself, Astemel begins chanting a spell, lifting his body into the air while a radiant glow forms around him, circling his entire frame like a controlled storm of light. In one event of the game, Astemel eventually leaves the party, and when that moment arrives, he passes on a special device to Lapis. The device in question is a legendary heirloom arrow known as Iriova's Irema. Seeing Astemel summon that very artifact here, in a situation like this, leaves Hiro with no options. His only remaining hope is that Lapis might appear in time to save him. The situation feels catastrophic to him. Astemel is not only confronting him directly, but doing so while activating an heirloom weapon that should never surface under casual circumstances. Hiro begins to doubt whether Astemel is even in a rational state of mind. At that moment, Lapis arrives from behind Hiro. Astemel notices her presence and questions why she is here, while Lapis explains that Hiro's sudden disappearance forces her to search for him. Her attention then shifts to the glowing relic in Astemel's hands. She demands to know why he has drawn the heirloom arrow. Astemel responds lightly, amused, admitting that he brings it out subconsciously due to the excitement of the battle. Lapis becomes irritated because she understands that such an item cannot be used recklessly. Hiro internally refers to Lapis as his trump card, the hidden advantage he relies on. Lapis, confused, seeks clarification. Hiro recalls how he assumes Lapis will eventually follow him after noticing his sudden escape. His entire survival plan is built on that assumption. He focuses solely on buying enough time for her to arrive before Astemel's true attack is unleashed. Lapis asks Hiro to explain everything that has happened. Hiro feels triumphant, believing that his gamble succeeds and that he manages to escape the duel alive. In his thoughts, he mocks Astemel for being unable to continue the private battle in the presence of his own princess. Astemel recounts the earlier events for Lapis, allowing her to grasp the full situation. With a laugh, he admits that he suffers an overwhelming defeat, acknowledging that Hiro manages to push him so far that he unconsciously draws his heirloom arrow. He then approaches Hiro, offering a handshake while declaring that Hiro exceeds all his expectations. Astemel believes Hiro possesses exceptional potential, to the point that he may even surpass Astemel one day. Hiro silently questions whether surpassing someone as impossibly overpowered as Astemel is even conceivable. Astemel then extends an invitation to Hiro, offering to take him as a disciple. MC internally feels the rout descending into complete chaos. Meanwhile, Lapis quietly observes the scene, unsettled by how close Astemel's face is to Hiro's. In the early morning, an elf feels a light chill in the air, yet considers it a pleasant start to the day. Hiro notices the figure and wonders who this elf might be. The elf identifies himself as Astemel, and he casually announces that he intends to train Hiro. Although Astemel is known as a powerful enemy, Hiro now finds him turning into an unexpectedly annoying mentor. MC is familiar with Astemel only as an intimidating swordsman, so he begins questioning where that frightening aura has gone. Astemel explains that he has already requested permission from Lapis to train Hiro. He then suggests that their relationship as teacher and student does not require stiff or formal language, as he prefers speaking in a more relaxed, casual manner. Hiro, however, feels uncomfortable with this approach. Astemel tells Hiro to address him as Shursho. Hiro becomes confused, unsure how to balance Astemel's desire for casual speech with the authoritative title he insists on. If he acts overly familiar and unintentionally irritates Astemel, he fears Astemel might cut him in half, so he hesitates to act too casually. Hiro attempts to pronounce Shursho, but his repeated mistakes begin to irritate Astemel. Astemel eventually refuses to respond until Hiro pronounces it correctly, leaving Hiro to conclude that the entire situation makes no sense. The once vigilant and hostile Astemel, who previously regarded Hiro as a dangerous enemy, now sulks like someone easily offended. Astemel is 420 years old, which equates to roughly 21 in human terms, and he considers himself cute. Hiro silently agrees that Astemel truly looks cute and wonders if he behaves this way around other girls as well. Hiro also reflects on Astemel's usual duty of driving away men who try to approach the princess. Now, however, Astemel is asking Hiro to become his disciple, which feels contradictory. When Hiro finally manages a proper pronunciation of Shursho, Astemel becomes delighted, leaving Hiro even more annoyed by the situation. Astemel decides to end their conversation and begin the training session. He refers to Hiro as his beloved pupil, prompting Hiro to wonder what Astemel intends to do next. Astemel announces that they will start with warm-ups. Hiro is surprised to see Astemel bring out his device, Mumi Bohi. Astemel is equally surprised that Hiro recognizes the name, correctly guessing that Hiro heard it from Lapis. Hiro confirms it, adding that ordinary weapons rarely receive actual names. Astemel then assumes Hiro also knows that Mumi Bohi is not a device. He explains that he is not using magic at all, and therefore considers it safe. For him, performing warm-ups using sharp weapons feels completely natural. Hiro admits that he does not understand the logic behind this, and asks Astemel not to impose rules that only make sense to himself. Astemel gives the signal to begin training, and Hiro feels as though he is being ignored as a student. Hiro reminds him that he is a complete beginner with swords, and giving him a real blade would be dangerous. Astemel relents and hands him a training sword from Alfheim. He mentions that he will use a training weapon for this session only, though he personally believes Hiro would learn better through real combat. Hiro suspects Astemel simply wants an excuse to play with his real sword. At dawn, the two of them begin their training. When Astemel strikes, Hiro feels intense pain, realizing that if Astemel had used his real sword, his body would have been sliced to pieces. Astemel remarks that this is only the beginning. In the game, Astemel remains in the party for only a brief time, yet during that short duration, he can defeat high-level enemies with ease thanks to his broken stats and equipment, something that makes players suspect a bug. In reality, however, Hiro knows he cannot expect the same kind of overwhelming power from this version of Astemel, even though he himself is unsure of the reason. After enduring several of Astemel's attacks, Hiro gradually starts to follow the trajectory of Astemel's swings. The next strike, however, lands cleanly on Hiro's body with the training sword, sending him crashing to the ground. Hiro insists that Astemel should stop instead of continuing the assault. Astemel explains that Hiro becomes careless simply because he is holding a wooden blade, and that a fight does not end merely because Hiro manages to block an attack. Astemel's own combat philosophy is ruthless. He allows flesh to be cut and bones to be struck because he is the one who ultimately wins. Hiro concludes that Astemel is far from normal. Astemel instructs Hiro to fix his posture. Hiro argues internally that if both flesh and bone are struck together, he would die instantly. Astemel casually asks Hiro not to die. Hiro remarks that this already qualifies as physical abuse. After several more hours of continuous training, Astemel finally realizes that Hiro possesses a level of stamina that still needs significant improvement, and she mentally notes this as an important task for him moving forward. Hiro, however, feels the opposite. For him, it seems more accurate to say that Astemel simply has an absurd surplus of stamina, while his own stamina stat is already nearly depleted. Despite the intense movements they have repeated for hours, Astemel shows no sign of fatigue, which makes Hiro wonder whether exhaustion is a concept she even experiences. Eventually, Astemel invites Hiro to take a break and continue with the theoretical portion of their training. She even acknowledges Hiro's persistence in lasting this long without collapsing. The small gesture touches Hiro for a moment, yet the feeling vanishes instantly when she casually reminds him that they will resume physical training after the break. The moment of appreciation dissolves, leaving him irritated once again. As they rest, Astemel asks whether Hiro has decided which attribute he wants to train. Hiro admits that he is still considering his options. In the structure of this game world, aside from basic stats, there is also a status enhancement system based on attributes. The console has 6 elemental categories, and players can insert attribute slots into the console. By using compatible elemental magic, these attributes can be raised further. Hiro begins leaning toward the water attribute. In his mind, water is versatile when combined with other elements, making it suitable as a sub-element. However, using a sub-element would mean removing Kukumasimian, which has extremely limited slots. The thought alone frustrates him. Astemel then suggests that he train the light attribute instead. The idea surprises Hiro. Astemel explains that light suits the natural flow of Hiro's swordsmanship, and when combined with warp, it could create movements approaching the speed of light. Hiro has no desire to use the light attribute, and Astemel questions his reasoning. The MC silently judges Hiro as well, thinking that Hiro barely raises the light attribute and already acts overly proud of it. As far as the MC is concerned, someone like Hiro, who constantly disrupts Yuri, does not deserve to wield light at all. Astemel gently pats Hiro's head and remarks that he seems to be thinking about many things at once. Hiro, annoyed, mutters that if Astemel wants to pat someone's head, she should do it to Lapis instead. Hiro then mentions that he wants to learn a weapon other than the sword. Astemel encourages him to share what kind of weapon he has in mind. By the time the late morning sun grows harsh, Hiro is grateful because he can finally go home after almost 5 hours of training with Astemel. She states that she has something to attend to and suddenly disappears without warning. Hiro is too tired to immediately return home and heads straight into his own bathroom. So he decides to stop by the training room instead, since its shower room is much closer. When Hiro steps inside, the training area is completely empty. The place has essentially become nothing more than a passageway on the way to the showers, since anyone who wants serious practice usually heads straight for the dungeon. The shower room contains an entire set of 12 stalls, and realizing that he is the only one using such an overbuilt facility makes Hiro feel strangely guilty. It seems wasteful to occupy something so extravagant alone. Besides Rei, the maid is also going to participate in the upcoming match, which makes Hiro wonder what Astemel is trying to accomplish. Astemel explains that she happens to find both Rei and the maid while she is out buying taiyaki. Hiro is baffled, thinking that the two of them are not items she can casually carry around like snacks. One of the Alpha asks whether Hiro knows them, and Hiro responds by saying that Rei is his younger sister. Sanjo Rei is, in fact, the next heir to the Sanjo family. Rei explains that she previously hears a strange rumor circulating within the main household. She initially dismisses it as nothing more than absurd gossip, something too ridiculous to take seriously, until she eventually witnesses the situation with her own eyes. She is shocked to see that Hiro truly brings the elves into his home. Rei then questions whether Hiro intends to keep the elves as personal companions or even as concubines. One of the Alpha grows irritated at the accusation and demands to know if Rei is genuinely serious, and whether she also views their princess in such a degrading way. Rei argues that elves are still elves, nothing more and nothing less. Hiro adds that they are merely foolish humans from a narrow and limited world. Rei becomes annoyed and warns Hiro not to act as though he holds authority over the Sanjo family, demanding that he understand his place. Hiro steps in to calm the tension between the Alpha and Rei. Hiro tells her that if she wants to act like a representative of the Sanjo family, then she is free to do so, but he also asks her not to speak about matters she herself cannot be certain of. Rei accuses Hiro of pretending to be kind and wise, claiming he is no different from the rest of the Sanjo household. Rei eventually apologizes for interfering. She explains that her only reason for coming to Hiro's home is to personally verify whether the indecent rumors about Hiro are true, and she insists that she has no other intention. Hiro cannot understand why the future head of the Sanjo family must personally investigate trivial rumors about him, especially since he is known within the family as a mischievous and flirtatious troublemaker living together with several girls. He even questions whether Rei feels the need to inspect their breakfast menu as well. When the maid moves to calm Rei's anger, Rei stops her and insists that a mere servant should not involve herself in the affairs of the Sanjo family. The maid falls silent and apologizes. From the beginning, Rei always behaves like this, constantly saying things that contradict her own feelings. Although Astemel brings her here, Hiro is certain that there is no event in the original story where Rei visits him. Even though Rei is his sister, Hiro feels uncomfortable letting a heroine from the game interact too closely with any man, so he initially wants her to finish her business and leave quickly. At the same time, simply letting her walk away without addressing anything does not feel right either. Hiro eventually invites Rei to stay at his home for the night because he believes her visit is not solely about verifying rumors. He also explains that the atmosphere is tense and encourages her to become more familiar with the elves first. Rei responds with a sharp, mocking smile. She assumes that Hiro is not satisfied with only the elves and now intends to touch her as well, despite their extremely close blood relation. Hiro is stunned and insists that such a thing is impossible. Rei claims she has suspected for some time that Hiro might eventually reach this point. The MC silently observes all of this, convinced that Hiro is hated far more intensely in this reality than in the original game. The MC wonders what Hiro must have done before the reincarnation for things to escalate this severely. Astemel senses that the atmosphere is heating up, and Hiro blames her for the situation. Hiro even imagines that because of Astemel, a war between Alfheim and the Sanjo family might break out. Astemel thinks he is exaggerating and insists that this is no more serious than a debate over the evening meal. Hiro feels that Astemel treats every conflict in this world far too lightly. The Alpha then casually announce that they want curry for dinner. Hiro becomes frustrated and asks them not to change the topic so easily, especially while everyone is still standing on opposite sides. Mua, however, insists that dinner must be curry, otherwise she threatens there might be a war. Hiro is stunned. Astemel decides that the conversation has become too chaotic, and she calls everyone back to the subject at hand by suggesting they resume the duel. Hiro responds that this is exactly the problem. The sides are only becoming more divided. Astemel reminds him that she already mentions earlier that Rei is joining to help him. Everyone then retrieves the prepared weapons. With that, Astemel declares that they are now officially ready to begin their friendly duel. Astemel begins by explaining that the match will be decided in a single determining round. If the elf side loses even once, the entire elf team will be considered defeated. Since Astemel notices a considerable gap in strength, she allows the Sanjo family's side to fight in pairs, specifically Lapis together with the two siblings. The reward for winning depends on the victor. If the Alfheim side wins, they earn the right to choose the dinner menu. The Alpha react with mild disappointment, feeling that the reward offered to them is trivial. Mua flatly states that the elves are merely guests in this household, and that being allowed to comment on the menu is already generous enough, though she insists that the dinner should still be curry. Astemel then explains the opposing reward. If the Sanjo family side wins, the incident involving Hiro's accidental peeking will be dismissed entirely, and the Alpha will stop holding a grudge against him. Hiro finds it outrageous that clearing his name requires wagering his life. Lapis remarks that trying to reason with Astemel is pointless since Astemel frequently forces her into all sorts of unreasonable situations. She recalls moments when Astemel made her do ridiculous tasks despite her status as a princess. Hiro tries to pull Lapis back to the present, reminding her that they will be fighting soon. Rei declares that she does not have the time to join such a childish friendly match. She throws her practice sword aside, prompting Astemel to assume that Rei intends to walk away after displaying her arrogance. Rei then retrieves her weapon again, prepared to demonstrate her own definition of retreat. As the duel approaches, she instructs Hiro to protect the princess, and Hiro agrees. Meanwhile, Lapis excuses herself briefly before returning, fully prepared. Hiro asks Rei to guard Lapis since Lapis is a princess. Lapis, slightly exasperated, points out that her royal status should already be obvious. The duel is set, Rei and Lapis against Shi, one of the Alpha. Astemel instructs both sides to prepare. Shi states that the two things she struggles with most in the world are restraining herself and looking at Rei's irritating expression. Rei internally feels the same way. The match begins. Both sides move immediately into attack. Rei initiates with her staff, yet Shi effortlessly blocks the strike with nothing more than a small knife. Shi acknowledges that Rei's thrust carries some weight. For her, a friendly duel becomes more meaningful only when treated with seriousness. Shi then advances sharply, her knife tracing a line toward Rei's head, but Rei manages to deflect it with her staff. Rei attempts a counterattack by striking with the staff, catching Shi during a moment of near carelessness, yet Shi recovers quickly and attempts to kick Rei. Rei manages to block the kick. Shi follows with another strike aimed at Rei's head, grazing Rei slightly. That brief moment of contact signals to Rei how dangerous Shi truly is. As soon as Rei begins to falter from Shi's pressure, Lapis steps forward and intercepts the next attack. She urges Rei to regulate her breathing. Rei reflects that her retreat earlier was purely reflexive. Shi's blade nearly reaches her collarbone. She begins to understand that these Alpha are far from ordinary. Hiro observes the match from the side, prompting Rei to question his expression. Hiro simply feels that Rei and Lapis have a real chance to win. When he asks Rei's assessment, Rei admits that under normal circumstances, she does not believe they could win. However, since both sides are not at full strength, the Alpha are restricted from using their bows, their strongest weapon, and because Lapis is present on the Sanjo side, Rei believes that they still have a possible path to victory if they use the situation well. Lapis and Shi continue exchanging blows. Eventually, Shi manages to land a strike with her knife, cutting Lapis's hand before knocking her down. Rei immediately rushes in from behind. Shi assumes that Rei has finally decided to move, and believes Rei should be grateful for the help Lapis provided. With Lapis unable to continue, the match becomes a one-on-one confrontation. As Shi steps forward to finish it, she suddenly feels resistance beneath her foot. Lapis, still conscious and refusing to accept defeat, anchors Shi's foot with her sword. She refuses to allow SHI to remove her from the match so easily. From the front, Rei closes in on SHI with determination. The pressure forces SHI into a moment of panic. In response, SHI delivers a clean slash to Rei's abdomen, while Rei simultaneously drives a forceful strike into SHI's collarbone.
Now the story continues. SHI stepped forward and drove the knife deeply into Rei's stomach. Pain spread through Rei's body from the brutal attack. At the same time, Rei swung the staff forward with all her strength and struck SHI across the shoulder. Both attacks landed together. SHI's blade remained buried against Rei, while Rei's strike forced SHI backward from the impact. Lapis raised her voice and declared the point immediately after both attacks landed together. Simultaneous valid strikes turned the match into a draw, and the fierce clash finally came to an end. Rei accepted the draw with frustration, while breathing heavily from the intense exchange. SHI endured the pain, and admitted that Rei was not bad for a little sister. SHI lowered her hand after the duel, and admitted an apology for the rudeness shown until now. Praise followed naturally from her lips, while admitting that blood had not boiled like that in a long time. Rei quietly accepted the gratitude while keeping her expression restrained after hearing SHI's sincere apology. SHI clasped Rei's hand tightly after the duel ended. Both of them smiled while recovering from the fight. Lapis watched them quietly and admitted that both of them were stubborn. Worry remained on her face as she asked Rei if she was okay after the duel. Hiro looked toward Lapis after the duel and admitted that Lapis fell face first pretty hard. As Hiro confessed that panic came from thinking her face might have gotten deformed from the impact. Lapis immediately became annoyed after hearing Hiro's words. Pain still remained through her body from the fight, yet Hiro continued making jokes while she was still hurt. Hiro admitted that the worry was serious. Hiro moved closer toward Lapis and thanked Rei for covering during the fight. Hiro noticed that the tension around Lapis had finally eased up too, and a softer atmosphere slowly replaced the hostility from before. Hiro happily declared that from his perspective the home-cooked meal flag had just been raised. Excitement filled Hiro's expression as thoughts immediately drifted toward the sleepover later tonight. Hiro became convinced that those two girls were bound to get even closer after spending the night together. Suspicion quietly appeared as Lapis realized how quick Hiro was to pair girls up together. Lapis accepted once again that Hiro was truly an idiot. Rei immediately questioned who said anything about staying over after hearing Hiro and Lapis continue talking on their own. Hiro loudly volunteered himself without hesitation. Excitement completely took over as Hiro begged Lapis to leave the rest to her. Hiro even pleaded for the sleepover to be recorded and promised to get on his knees and beg if possible. Lapis became uncomfortable from Hiro's strange enthusiasm and quickly told Hiro not to get on his knees either. Hiro slowly turned silent afterward while a strange smile remained across his face. Nur appeared before Hiro while apologizing for making her wait. He promised to get ready right away while standing before Hiro with a knife resting in hand. Since both of them were already here, Hiro suggested making up with a handshake. Hiro reached his hand forward without hesitation. Mir quietly stared toward Hiro after hearing the sudden proposal. Hiro quietly asked if she was really okay acting like this now. Hiro smiled and reminded Mir about earlier. Hiro still wanted to return the favor for being called this guy before. Hiro suddenly grabbed Lapis, while asking if Lapis was looking to get beaten to a pulp right now. She warned Hiro not to act tough while hiding at the same time. Hiro insisted that Rei was the one who said it. Even so, Hiro admitted that if victory was the goal, then Lapis should be used. Hiro confidently declared that Lapis was the main tank this time. Lapis warned Hiro not to call her that again, or his face would be rearranged with her fist. Killing intent quietly filled Mir's gaze as the attack closed toward Hiro. Mir suddenly moved the instant Hiro turned his back. Her knife swept low toward Hiro with sharp speed while her body slid across the floor without hesitation. Confusion crossed Hiro's face as the attack arrived before any signal had even been given. Mir immediately reacted the moment Lapis moved closer. Tension sharply rose again as both sides prepared for another clash. Lapis stepped forward with confidence and raised her sword toward Mur. Pride filled Lapis as she introduced herself. Mur quickly jumped backward after the sudden attack failed to land. The second match immediately began with Mur facing Hiro and Lapis together. Lapis firmly reminded Hiro that they were teammates right now. Lapis warned Hiro not to treat her like a shield anymore. Hiro scratched his head awkwardly and promised not to say it anymore, because getting his face rearranged by Lapis' fist was not something he wanted. Muir instantly rushed behind Hiro, and Lapis the moment the match started. Her knife cut through the air with sharp speed. Hiro quickly noticed the movement and mocked Muir for always loving attacks from behind. A loud pat echoed the instant Hiro reacted to the sudden ambush. Lapis immediately spun around with her sword and forced Muir backward. Her blade twisted fiercely toward Muir, while Hiro moved beside her to continue the counterattack. Muir clicked her tongue in frustration and admitted how underhanded. Hiro rushed directly toward Muir and forced her attention onto him. Muir blocked Hiro's strike while trying to push him away with her knife. The fierce exchange forced all three of them into constant movement without giving anyone time to rest. Hiro quickly shifted his position and grabbed Lapis before her body lost balance during the clash. Astemel carefully watched the flow of the battle, while switching between offense and defense without stopping. She quickly realized that Muir could no longer attack carelessly because of her strong loyalty. Surprise appeared as Maid admitted that those two were completely in sync. Muir tightened her grip around the knife, while continuing to watch Hiro and Lapis carefully. Lapis suddenly reached her hand toward Hiro during the middle of the exchange. Hiro immediately reached back toward Lapis at the same moment. A quiet thought surfaced inside Astemel as the feeling reminded her of something familiar. Lapis leaped forward with her sword while Hiro followed beside her at the same pace. Astemel quietly admitted that the battle felt almost like a dance. Their combined strike forced Muir backward until her body crashed hard against the wall with a loud clatter. Lapis called out Hiro, while Hiro rushed forward beside her. Hiro answered with a sharp agree, as both of them attacked together without hesitation and launched their final blow. Hiro immediately fixed his gaze on Muir, while Lapis watched carefully without lowering her guard. Muir slowly raised herself again while enduring the pressure from Hiro. Hiro rushed toward Muir with his sword raised high, while Muir stayed low against the ground and watched his movement carefully. Lapis stared forward in shock, and a quiet air escaped from her lips as Muir suddenly disappeared from Hiro's sight. Hiro immediately turned around, but Muir already moved behind him with terrifying speed. Muir swung her blade across Hiro with a violent slice before anyone could react. Astemel quietly watched the result and softly declared point as Hiro froze from the sudden counterattack. Lapis struck Hiro in frustration while yelling "Geez" after the match ended. Hiro laughed awkwardly and blamed the loss on a careless mistake as he apologized that his foot slipped. Hiro still insisted that if that had landed then they definitely would have won, while Lapis continued hitting him without mercy. Hiro cried out in pain and complained that it hurt while asking if he was a drum. Maid nervously called out Rei-sama and pointed toward Rei's towel. Rei quietly watched the scene from nearby, while Maid suddenly noticed something strange. After the match ended, the atmosphere inside the house slowly became peaceful again as everyone gathered together for dinner. The elf happily declared that this was Japanese curry at its finest, while also admitting there were no complaints about the flavor either. Hiro admitted that all Hiro did was melt down a store-bought roux while the warm steam continued rising from the food. After asking a maid, they opened up the kitchen for Hiro and even helped prepare everything together. The maids also helped set the table, while Lapis happily moved around the dining room beside them. One maid quietly admitted that it was hard to believe Hiro was really hated right after reincarnating. The day after that dinner, Hiro received something unexpected from the maids. The maid revealed that they apologized to fellow maids, and their opinion of Hiro had improved as well. She explained that things only went from negative to neutral, but also admitted that things do change with time. Rei quietly looked toward Hiro and Lapis for admitting how very close they all seemed. Hiro looked confused after hearing Rei's voice while softly calling out Rei. Lapis tilted her head and wondered what that was about, while Hiro tried to brush it aside by suggesting maybe Rei just came to ask what's for dinner. The next moment, Lapis suddenly grabbed onto Hiro while demanding hamburger steak with sparkling excitement. Hiro immediately handed over the plate and reminding Lapis that someone who lost on the same team had no right to make demands. Lapis complained about Hiro's attitude and asked what was with that tone. She proudly reminded Hiro that Lapis was a princess, while Hiro quietly realized they had started acting very close together. Hiro even wondered if Lapis was already being treated like a friend. Hiro still kept looking toward Muir with concern. Lapis noticed Hiro's reaction and softly asked if Hiro was worried about Muir. Muir sat alone quietly while the atmosphere around her felt heavy. Lapis tried to lighten the mood by saying it was fine because Muir loved curry too, and Hiro said Japanese curry really was unbeatable. Lapis softly wondered why Muir was in such a bad mood. Lapis quietly apologized to Hiro, while wondering if Muir was only tired from fighting two people at once. Lapis admitted that everyone from Mangacap archers was not bad, though they tended to be overprotective of her. She also admitted that Hiro and the others barged in and caused trouble for them. Hiro accepted those feelings without complaint and told Lapis not to worry about it because Hiro understood her situation well. Hiro accepted that their hostility was perfectly reasonable and even admitted that Hiro kind of liked it. Hiro then remembered admiring Princess Ceci's naked body before claiming that made things even between them. Lapis immediately reacted with shock and demanded that memory to be erased right now while trying to calm herself and admitting that it was not a bother for her. Lapis happily tried to suggest that from then on both of them should get along better together. Hiro suddenly interrupted that thought and told Lapis that aside from that she had to leave the villa and never come back again. Hiro tried to explain that personal circumstances already existed and Hiro had something important to protect. Hiro begged Lapis to understand that staying around him like that would only cause trouble for both of them. Lapis could not hide the pain after hearing those words and desperately. Lapis admitted that outside of the holy capital Alpheum, she did not have any friends. Lapis also remembered saying terrible things when meeting Hiro for the first time. Even after that, Hiro had always been kind to her. Those memories stayed close to Lapis' heart, while tears slowly fell from her eyes. Hiro suddenly panicked and shouted that everything before was only a joke. Hiro desperately begged Lapis to stay around and insisted that she was not a bother at all. Hiro kept repeating that everything was totally fine while surrounded by furious people pointing weapons from every direction. Hiro nervously tried to remind Lapis about how men in this world usually acted. Lapis admitted that back then she used to be wary of men because Hiro was still someone unfamiliar to her. But now everything felt fine to Lapis, and the fear from before no longer remained inside her heart. Lapis softly smiled and admitted that none of it mattered whether Hiro was a guy or a girl, because Hiro would always remain Hiro to her. Embarrassment slowly covered Hiro's face while telling Lapis to just get out already. Hiro walked alone through the hallway, while admitting there was no way those words could still be said to Lapis anymore. Making a princess cry already went against Hiro principles, and Hiro also understood that Mangacap archers would definitely come after him for hurting her feelings. Hiro quietly wondered what should be done next while the empty hallway suddenly carried the sound of Rei, name being called from the distance. Hiro quietly moved farther down the silent hallway. The path eventually opened into a peaceful room beneath the night sky, where a large telescope rested quietly inside the beautiful stargazing deck. Lapis noticed a stylish place up on the third floor. Hiro felt uneasy because there should not be any events going on there. Hiro quietly asked if something was needed. Rei sat inside the stargazing deck, while asking if Hiro had been tailing her. She told Hiro that if there was business, then Hiro should come up. Rei quietly allowed Hiro to go ahead while the small charm in her hand gave a faint jingle. Hiro slowly climbed into the stargazing deck. Silence stayed between them while neither Hiro nor Rei could easily speak about the feelings hidden in their hearts. The soft scent from her fresh out of the bath skin quietly filled the room. Rei noticed Hiro trying to avoid looking directly at her, and softly questioned why. Rei calmly asked if Hiro did miss on purpose. Hiro scratched his head and admitted that the truth had already been seen. Rei accepted the answer while Hiro admitted that everything had been clearly seen. Hiro remembered the moment when he was about to strike Muir. Muir looked like it would be the end of the world if she lost, because that would mean even someone like Hiro could go near Lapis. Hiro realized that Muir's devotion toward her master was blazing strong and truly admirable. Rei could only answer with a confused. Hiro quietly admitted defeat, while struggling to explain those feelings with simple words. Hiro could only say that he lost. Rei still could not understand what Hiro was trying to say. Hiro laughed and figured that Rei had not yet reached that state of mind. Hiro smiled and told Rei that someday understanding would come naturally. Hiro believed that one day Rei would welcome a wife that could truly be trusted. Rei could only stay silent. Rei quietly told Hiro not to trust anyone. She could not trust the foster father and foster mother that gave false love. She also could not trust the aunts that bought everything she wanted. Rei continued speaking while leaning against Hiro. Rei could not trust the great aunt that forced Sanjo Rei onto her life. The truth about the girl called Sanjo Rei slowly came out. Sanjo Rei was dragged into the darkness of the Sanjo family. Ever since Rei was a child, Rei had been used without understanding why. Rei was taken away by relatives as the rightful successor. Day after day, Rei endured harsh training laced with punishment from the main family and spiteful harassment from the jealous branch families. Even Hiro, as Rei's elder brother, exploited Rei for his own ends. Growing up in such an environment left no way for Rei to ever place trust in anyone. He understood that Hiro was so trash that hatred toward Hiro was no wonder. Even so, Hiro believed that still worked out fine. Hiro thought this was the result of giving up on trusting anyone. Hiro believed Rei had built a reflection to protect herself. Hiro could only listen as Rei admitted that trust could never be placed in anyone. Family was supposed to be family, yet every last one of them only used Rei. Rei remembered trusting them over and over again. Hiro could only wonder what had pushed Rei this far. Rei suddenly cried out that not once had anyone ever saved Rei. Hiro tried to speak, but the grief inside Rei burst out now of all times. Rei believed it was already too late. Hiro could no longer pretend to be a good person after everything that had happened between them. Rei suddenly turned away and rushed out in anger, while Hiro reached out toward Rei and begged Rei to wait a second. Hiro tried to calm down and stop the rising panic inside Hiro as Rei disappeared from sight. Hiro remembered that the one who saves Rei from the Sanjo family was supposed to be the protagonist. If Sanjo Hiro became involved, then the ideal scene could be destroyed. Hiro even feared that the Yuri Hiro loved might end up ruined because of that involvement. The maid bowed deeply before Hiro and quietly called Hiro. Hiro looked at the maid and realized that the maid had truly been serving as the Sanjo family's maid all along. The maid then raised her face and revealed that the maid had a request for him. The maid bowed before Hiro and spoke about a request. 1 week from now on Saturday waited ahead. The maid handed the member's card toward Hiro and asked him to have a meal with her. Hiro could not understand why the maid carried such a pained expression over a restaurant run by the Sanjo family. A week had passed since the practice match and the incident with Rei. Hiro headed toward the place the maid specified, while those memories remained inside his mind. Lapis happily held on to Hiro while staying close against his arm. Hiro could only wonder how it ended up like this. The princess's closeness already felt like more than just friendship. Lapis confusion and wondered what they were doing for lunch. She then asked Hiro if he had any favorite foods. Lapis wondered if flowers could be eaten after quietly answering that lilies maybe sounded good. Hiro fell into complete brain shutdown while trying to deny it, and asked for a second, so he could sort the situation out. Hiro questioned why Lapis started clinging to him, like a duckling, while the strange image only made the confusion worse. Lapis admitted that was exactly the problem, and could not hide the growing headache from it. Lapis seriously called out to Hiro, and looked shocked that Hiro could actually say something like that. Lapis complained that Hiro went off on a solo date, without even trying to invite her, while she stayed bored at home. Lapis blamed a certain someone's mistake for making her lose Mikage Archer, who served as her own subordinate. Hiro could only sigh and wonder if Lapis now expected him to take responsibility and entertain a spoiled princess. Lapis looked at Hiro with a bright smile and waited for an answer while quietly wondering if this was that kind of thing. Hiro could only panic at the thought of being seen out on a date with the princess on his arm because the Mikage Archers would kill him. Lapis proudly explained that she came in disguise and believed that solved everything. Hiro stared at Lapis in disbelief and questioned if Lapis even understood what a disguise was. Hiro could only think that Lapis had not changed a bit since their dungeon days. Lapis quietly wondered if linking arms was something only lovers did and nervously asked Hiro not to tell her otherwise. Hiro fell silent while Lapis watched him closely. Lapis soon noticed Hiro getting flustered just from linking arms and found the reaction cute. Hiro could only struggle against the teasing while Lapis enjoyed every moment beside him. Lapis stayed close against Hiro while Squish pressed between them. Hiro felt that this was seriously crossing the line. Hiro feared people might start suspecting they were in a relationship between a man and a woman. Lapis insisted that a relationship between a man and a woman was impossible. She believed that most people would only think, oh, she's linking arms with a girl in men's clothes. Hiro noticed everyone else linking arms and flirting too. He quietly admitted now that she mentioned it. Hiro could only mutter well, but still while confusion filled his thoughts. Hiro felt that this was everyday life in a Yuri game world. Hiro admitted that a common sense from his past life kept getting in the way, and it just felt off as hell. Lapis smiled softly while admitting that Lapis recognized Hiro as a man now. Lapis respected Hiro as a person. Lapis admitted that even Estemel acknowledged Hiro, right? Lapis believed Hiro had that kind of interesting charm that made Lapis want to chase after him. Hiro answered with much obliged. He thought that if it was just interest as a topic, then that guess was safe enough. He then asked what Her Highness desired today. He quickly decided first clothes. He reminded Hiro that once they entered the academy, there was that thing, so they needed to start preparing soon. Lapis paused before suggesting that how about they grab some lunch? Hiro smiled brightly and asked if a restaurant would be okay. Lapis looked surprised. Lapis thought Hiro looked awfully confident. Hiro grinned proudly and told Lapis not to underestimate the heir of the Sanjo family. Hiro boldly promised that he would treat Lapis to anything she liked. Then, the employee firmly declared that those with a score 0 were not allowed inside. The employee then ordered Hiro and Lapis to please leave. Hiro quickly revealed that Hiro had a membership card. Hiro even explained that Hiro was from the Sanjo family. The employee coldly answered that they could not accept that and repeated please leave. Lapis could only stare in shock beside him. Lapis tried to cheer Hiro up by proudly reminding Hiro that Lapis was a princess after all. She admitted being sick of fancy restaurants anyway and happily declared that fast food was fine. Hiro lowered his head and quietly apologized with sorry. Lapis gently told Hiro not to look so down. Hiro hesitated before asking, "Say Your Highness." Hiro wondered how Lapis dealt with someone who power did not work on. Lapis then bluntly declared say her score is 30,000. She insisted that even if Hiro's stubbornly stuck around they should hurry and go somewhere else because it would just be a bother. Hiro quietly answered no, but still. Lapis looked at Hiro with confusion and admitted that Hiro was being so vague. Lapis then asked if it was really that important that it had to be the shop. That's exactly right. Otherwise there's no point in coming today. Hiro carried a faint smile while getting turned away from his own family's place, and going home as Lame settled heavily inside his thoughts. No need to be embarrassed. It's just between Hiro and Lapis, right? Lapis walked beside Hiro, while the Sanjo family's guard appeared before them with sharp pressure surrounding the hallway. Hiro froze after realizing the Sanjo family's guard came before them. The sudden arrival of the guards sent tension through Hiro, while Lapis remained beside him, without stepping away. Rei. The name struck Hiro the instant Rei appeared beside the armed guards while sharp silence filled the corridor. The woman standing among them lowered her face beneath the heavy pressure surrounding the group, while the guards moved forward with weapons resting at their sides. Hiro moved forward while Lapis telling him not to worry about it, and ordered him to stay outside for about an hour. Hiro warned Lapis not to come in no matter what happened. Hiro also told Lapis to keep the magic catalyst device put away because it would cause trouble. Lapis looked confused and quietly called out wait. Hiro suddenly turned back and asked whether Lapis would have a meal there with Hiro next Saturday. The maid asking Hiro for something like this felt strange. The maid lowered her head and softly confessed that for her there was only Hiro. There was no one else the maid could rely on. Only Hiro remained in her heart, while the trembling voice called out Rei-sama. Tears fell endlessly from the maid, while her trembling voice cried out for Hiro to save her. Pain and desperation filled her expression. This was an event the protagonist was meant to face. As Sanjo Hiro, he should not get involved. Hiro understood that this was how the game's scenario was supposed to go. If Hiro did not step in, then Rei would suffer a deep wound before even entering the academy. The painful truth continued to weigh heavily on Hiro, while the image of Rei remained before him. But even while knowing everything, Hiro could not accept something like that. Hiro refused to betray himself even after becoming Sanji Hiro. Hiro believed there was one thing that must never be compromised. The membership card slipped from Hiro's hand, while the maid remained kneeling before him. The heavy silence filled the room, as Hiro slowly stepped closer. Hiro gently reached out and placed a hand upon the maid's head while the distance between them quietly disappeared. Hiro gently patted the maid's head and told Snow to leave it to him. The quiet reassurance reached Snow while Hiro stood firmly beside her. Snow could only remain still as tears slowly overflowed from her eyes. The trembling expression on Snow's face carried both pain and relief after finally hearing those words from him. A future where they continued to cry appeared before Hiro's eyes. Snow covered her mouth while tears continued falling without end. Rei remained silent nearby, while the painful scene deeply stirred Hiro's heart. Hiro refused to allow it. Hiro gripped the weapon tightly and declared that Hiro would bend the very laws of the world because tears did not belong in Yuri. A domineering Japanese-Western hybrid completely unfit for a restaurant spread before Rei. The heavy atmosphere quietly surrounded the room, while Rei lowered her gaze in silence. The elder coldly called Rei's name and reminded Rei time and again that Rei was a woman of the Sanjo family. The sharp voice continued without mercy and ordered Rei to behave in a way that befit that name. Rei faced the elder with all due respect while the heavy silence filled the luxurious room. The sharp gaze then questioned what it was about Rei's conduct that displeased the family. The elder coldly remarked that lately Rei had been awfully taken with Hiro. Rei lowered her eyes and quietly struggled to answer, while the weak reply of that is barely escaped from Rei's lips. The elder coldly concluded that Rei had been keeping an eye on Hiro. She admitted that Hiro's behavior was strange, but believed nothing was worth paying attention to. The sharp voice of the elder continued without mercy and declared that the real problem was Rei herself. Spending the night at a villa that Rei had no need to visit was called a disgraceful blunder. The elder also pointed out that Rei started acting differently after that dinner gathering. The elder revealed hearing that Rei did not throw away the bandage Hiro gave Rei. Rei had even kept using it without throwing it away. The cold gaze of the elder grew even sharper, while accusing Rei of letting down Rei's guard around that fool. The cruel question of whether Rei had lost Rei's mind filled the room. The elder coldly questioned whether Rei had actually become happy over something like that. The painful words struck deeply, while Rei remained frozen in silence. The elder harshly reminded Rei that Rei was the woman who would become the head of the Sanjo family. That kind of carelessness could not be overlooked. The heavy warning struck Rei without mercy, while Rei stood frozen beneath the crushing pressure of the family's expectations. Plates and silverware scattered violently around Rei, while the painful humiliation crushed Rei beneath the family's merciless authority. Rei struggled helplessly as force dragged Rei downward across the table. The guards surrounded Rei without hesitation while the cruel command declared that Rei needed discipline. The cold voice continued by reminding Rei that in this Sanjo family that was right. Rei was violently pinned against the table, while the guards held her down without mercy. She realized that Rei's own choices never existed anywhere. Rei remembered the lonely days of childhood. The cold voice told Rei to go ahead and eat while young Rei quietly fed the fish near the water. Rei noticed one fish swimming alone and softly called hey toward the lonely fish. Young Rei sat quietly beside the water and softly asked the lonely fish if the fish would be Rei's family. The large Sanjo estate stood proudly behind Rei, while the painful truth followed Rei since childhood. Since no girl was born to inherit the main family, a young child without parents was chosen to fill that gap. The people from the facility brought young Rei into the vast Sanjo residence, while the heavy silence of the family quietly surrounded the small child. Rei stood alone with a small bag and a stuffed bear, while cold eyes carefully observed every movement. A low sound reached Rei before cruel words followed without hesitation. The maid stared down at Rei and harshly mocked the filthy hair and face Rei had. Young Rei could only hold the stuffed bear tighter. The maids coldly threw away the sneakers Rei received from Rei's mother, while declaring that the young lady was meant to become the head of the main family. Cruel voices insisted that Rei could not wear things belonging to common folk, while the precious shoes disappeared into the trash. Young Rei desperately cried out and demanded the sneakers back, while asking why they were being thrown away. The small trembling voice carried deep pain, as Rei tried to protect the final memory left behind by Rei's mother. The cold order to leave echoed through the Sanjo residence, while cruel words declared that this girl no longer belonged within reach of the outside world. The figure silently looked toward the closed doors, while the painful story slowly began. This became the story of how Rei, who was once only an outsider, was forced to become Sanju Rei. The heavy name settled onto Rei's small shoulders, while the lonely child quietly accepted the harsh fate chosen by the Sanjo family. The Sanjo family bound Rei beneath iron rules, while every part of life was strictly controlled. Rei's clothing, hairstyle, mannerism, schedule, and lessons were all decided without mercy inside the silent residence guarded by cold watching eyes. Every detail of audience etiquette was repeatedly drilled into Rei, while harsh commands forced Rei to sit exactly and silence Saiza down from the edge of the tatami. The painful lessons continued without rest, and even the smallest failure was never forgiven by the Sanjo family. Scoldings endlessly came from the main house, the branch families, and the instructors, while young Rei endured every harsh lesson alone. Painful cries escaped Rei as rough hands pulled at Rei without mercy, while the cold voices surrounding the child continued to demand obedience. The elders repeatedly reminded Rei that Rei was a woman of the Sanjo family, and nothing more, and certainly nothing less. Cruel teachings forced Rei to believe that a filthy girl could only survive inside that house by acquiring refinement, wisdom, and a proper way of living, while the heavy pressure slowly crushed the lonely child. Rei hated it more than anything as the hair praised by Rei's father was violently yanked, and the face loved by Rei's mother was painfully slapped. At 6 years old, Rei lay face down and slowly realized that every source of happiness and every small piece of warmth had come from Rei's real parents. Those two no longer existed within this world, and the cruel truth left Rei completely alone inside the Sanjo family. A faint realization suddenly reached Rei as the trembling child questioned how happiness could ever be found from now on. The painful thought continued to echo through Rei's heart, while lonely tears endlessly flowed across Rei's face. A lonely koi with a heart-shaped pattern quietly became Rei's only friend because the frightened eyes of the fish looked just like Rei's own. Rei often went to the pond and shared painful feelings with the good listener beside the water. That quiet place became Rei's only refuge during the cruel days. Even when awful things happened, Rei endured everything because the koi was always there waiting. Rei believed the lonely friend would surely bring happiness someday. The pond that once gave Rei comfort became filled with dead koi, while the shattered sight froze the lonely child in silence. The precious friend with the heart-shaped pattern disappeared beneath the dark water, and the cruel truth deeply pierced Rei's heart. Cold voices mocked Rei as foolish and warned that inheriting the house would never happen so easily. The harsh lesson forced Rei to understand. She quietly accepted the truth and realized the situation had been viewed the wrong way from the very beginning. Rei learned that this was not a world ordinary Rei should see. The beautiful stage, the bright lights, and the elegant performances. Young Rei stood before the audience and performed perfectly, while applause echoed through the hall. Rei understood that everything had to be seen from the perspective of Rei of the Sanjo family. A flawless performance with the perfect smile was brought to life for the honorable assembly. Rei wore a smile shown from the most beautiful angle while entertaining every important guest of the Sanjo family. Rei continued conversations for many minutes without pause before moving on to the next guest. 1-2-1-2 repeated through Rei's mind while walking straight with chest held high. Rei quietly wondered if everything was being done well enough. A quiet amusement, while Rei was called pretty clumsy. The unexpected words caused Rei to freeze as the unfamiliar feeling slowly reached deep inside the lonely heart. The small girl quietly questioned if that was truly so, while the man offered praise beneath the soft light of the night. A maid quietly admitted envy toward Rei. To her, Rei looked like a mechanical doll that could dance without a will of her own and continue smiling through endless commands. Rei could only question what those words truly meant, because the life forced upon Rei had already become something natural. The dark figure claimed the ability to already see through Rei and the fragile mask surrounding her existence. Those puppet strings hanging over Rei revealed the painful truth behind the beautiful performance. Rei realized that every movement and every smile had only been manipulation forced into the role that controlled her entire life. Rei understood that only certain people could see the strings controlling her movements. The precision of the manipulation was still clumsy and rough, yet Rei believed the performance should already be good enough. After all, the marionette called Rei was very well received by everyone around her. People praised her beauty and tossed tips toward her, while endless applause surrounded the performance. Rei slowly realized how easy happiness was to obtain through the perfect role created around her. A strange feeling quietly spread through Rei, while the happiness meant for Rei of the Sanjo family continued to grow through praise and admiration. Rei believed that life could probably continue easily, as long as the strings of Sanjo Rei were never released. Little by little, Rei began hearing rumors about an older brother. Soft footsteps echoed through the halls while people muttered that Hiro had returned again and questioned why something was not done about that nuisance. Hiro existed somewhere within that bloodline. The boy who became Rei's older brother slowly entered her thoughts, while cruel whispers asked why the main family had ever given birth to a male. That label of only family and older brother remained inside Rei's heart, while the voices around her continued echoing like endless static. The cause traced back to an anime Rei once watched while still living beside her real parents. In that distant memory, a gentle older brother promised that no matter who or what happened, his precious little sister would always remain important to him. Another memory followed behind it. A smiling boy declared that no matter what happened, he would always stay beside his little sister, because a brother's duty was to protect his sister. Rei foolishly refused to let go of the hope for true happiness. That sweet dream remained inside her heart. Rei quietly wondered what kind of man Hiro could be. Even if their circumstances were different, Hiro had still been shunned by the Sanjo family, just like her. Rei began believing that maybe both of them could understand each other's hardships. A gentle hand rested over Rei's head while kind words praised everything she had endured alone. Rei slowly believed that maybe Hiro would praise her like that someday. It had been a long time since Rei stopped scolding herself for holding on to such fantasies. Then a letter suddenly arrived addressed directly to her. That day became Rei's 9th birthday. A letter from Hiro rested inside her trembling hands while long-forgotten warmth slowly returned to a heart that had already gone cold. Her hopes quietly swelled with every passing second. Rei softly called Hiro while holding that precious letter close against her chest. The sealed letter rested beneath Rei's trembling hands while a quiet breath escaped from her lips. A weak laugh slowly followed as she unfolded every page inside the empty room. Then harsh laughter suddenly burst from Rei. The letter contained nothing except desperate begging for money. There was not a single word about her birthday anywhere inside those pages. Hiro excitedly asked what was happening between them, while hearing that both of them were going to a dungeon together. Bright excitement filled his face as he quickly begged to be counted in too. Hiro sadly complained about being treated coldly while left out between the girls. He desperately begged them not to leave him behind. Rei slowly realized that the older brother she once admired was nothing like the rumors claimed. Hiro casually begged for cash while trapped in a tight spot. He promised repayment later with loud thanks, while made proudly claiming that being part of the branch family should not make others look down on him. Rei even bragged that one word to the mothers could raise a man to their level because of that connection. Hiro proudly declared himself the heir of the Sanjo family, while mocking the branch family as worthless nobodies. He claimed that refusing to help him would only make him look bad, because people believed a child's shame belonged to the parents as well. A cold warning quietly reached Rei. Even an idiot could already figure out what would happen next. Hiro forced Rei to understand her place as plain Rei-san. He cruelly declared that anyone wishing for happiness would only end up betrayed in the end. Rei collapsed onto the floor while hearing her name called. The old woman slowly revealed the reason Rei had been chosen as the next head. A cruel smile spread across her face as she admitted that those clouded eyes of Rei were the very reason behind that choice. Rei lay motionless while those cruel words surrounded her. Those eyes of hers were praised for seeing the truth of the world and for being worthy of inheriting the Sanjo name. The voice called Rei forward and urged her to sink even deeper. The ticking elevator echoed softly, while the voice demanded one more push until Rei became complete. The elevator reached the 12th floor with a loud ding. The doors slowly opened and Hiro appeared while holding a sword at his side. Silence spread through the room as everyone stared at him in shock. The old woman could only whisper Hiro's name while confusion and fear filled the air. Hiro stepped forward with a careless smile and greeted everyone with a simple yo. Hiro looked around the room and remarked that everyone looked like they were having a lot of fun. The old woman trembled and told Hiro that a car would be called for him and that he should go home right now. Hiro only answered with a cold smile and cold words. Hiro warned them not to leave him out like that while his presence alone crushed the atmosphere inside the hall. Hiro sat on the broken table with a fearless grin and counted himself in two. Rei watched Hiro quietly while seeing the same defiant, arrogant, and fearless Hiro standing before everyone. The raid on the Sanjo estate had begun, and Rei's ties were being cut apart by Hiro himself. Rei stared at Hiro in shock and quietly called his name. The old woman warned Hiro that he should not have the right to be there. Hiro only smiled brightly and answered that everyone let him through because he asked politely. Hiro laughed while holding another guest and mocked them for measuring his score wrong. The frightened guest could only agree with Hiro. Rei looked around in panic and demanded to know where Snow was and why nobody had stopped him. Hiro smiled and wondered who knew where Snow was by now. Hiro believed Snow was probably rummaging around in the kitchen. Hiro understood that Rei had made Snow into a guard, so the secret dinner would never be exposed. Hiro realized the maid acted completely against Rei's plans. Hiro saw Snow following the dungeon group around, while secretly keeping watch. Snow even threatened to smash anyone to pieces. What an awful scene. The truth became clear after Hiro received the member's card entrusted to him. Rei realized that Snow had been assessing her all along for this very day. Hiro looked at the silent guests and told them to stop sitting there with dumb looks on their faces. Hiro casually asked for a drink to be poured for the handsome new arrival. Hiro smiled brightly while asking what was wrong. Hiro stared at the wealthy guests and mocked them for being too stingy to even offer a guest a glass of water. The glass fell heavily onto the floor, while tension spread across the room. The enemy rushed toward Hiro with fierce attacks, yet Hiro only answered with a cold glare and a sharp swing. Hiro moved forward with enhanced projection surrounding his body, while violent force burst through the room. Hiro clicked his tongue in annoyance while steel clashed loudly. The enemy became furious and cursed Hiro for becoming too cocky. Hiro tightened his grip on the weapon and faced the attack head-on without fear. Hiro swung the weapon with brutal force and sent the enemy flying across the room into the stands while destruction exploded everywhere. Hiro finished the strike and proudly called it a home run while the weapon still crackled with power in his hands. The old woman stood frozen in shock without words. Rei understood that Yuri being defiled had caused Hiro to lash out without thinking. Hiro realized the opening move had been too provocative toward the opponent and not good at all. Hiro remembered training with Master that morning and understood that barely any magic remained. Master also warned that if this many enemies came at Hiro, then the situation would become dangerous. Even so, the beloved disciple still laughed and believed survival would somehow be possible. More enemies slowly surrounded Hiro with weapons drawn while pressure filled the ruined room. Hiro looked at the situation and accepted that this was how things were going to be. Hiro smiled fearlessly, while wondering what could even be done in such a situation. Hiro forced a smile and believed that at the very least the unease had remained hidden. Hiro looked at the noisy crowd and thought about the mess caused by such reckless chaos while honored guests were still present. The old woman coldly ordered the attack to begin and even carried the intent to kill Hiro. Hiro suddenly sensed true intentions hidden behind those words, and a terrifying premonition of death ran through the room. The guards questioned whether eliminating Hiro so quickly would truly be the right choice and wondered if such a decision was premature. The old woman declared that the entire building belonged to the Sanjo family and claimed there were endless methods available if a death was desired. Another voice rejected such cruel reasoning and refused to ignore the situation any longer. The anger only grew stronger, while the thought of that man filled the room with tension. The old woman screamed that a man who carried the Sanjo blood in its fullest was not needed in this world. The warriors moved at once, and weapons flashed through the air with violent force. Dark magic spread across the building as the blinding dark attribute magic shutdown darkness seal consumed the entire hall. The attack carried true killing intent, and Hiro became the target of her fury. Rei had never seen Great Aunt act like that before. The darkness spread through the hall, while Rei realized that Great Aunt was seriously trying to take Hiro down. Rei remembered everything Snow had ever done to protect her, and believed this rescue must be the same. Even then, confusion remained inside Rei, as the question about why Snow chose that brother continued to linger. Some time had passed since that letter, and Rei promised that Hiro would be looked after her. A sudden message from Hiro arrived, and out of nowhere Hiro entrusted this girl to her care. The shy little girl quietly revealed that Snow was her name, while holding the large hat close to her body. Rei looked at Snow and quietly thought that she was such a timid-looking girl. For Hiro to be looking after someone like this felt unexpected to Rei. Hiro asked what exactly the relationship between them was, while Snow nervously wondered if Hiro had abandoned her after protecting the child for so long. Rei answered with a quiet question about whether any of it even mattered while the large estate remained silent around them. Rei quietly walked through the estate while several girls watched her with uneasy expressions and whispered among themselves. A pot lid was thrown toward Rei, but Snow quickly slid in front of her and blocked the strike with pot lid defense +5, while the hallway filled with tension. The girls suddenly stopped Rei and questioned what her deal was after recognizing her as the new maid who had recently arrived. Snow warned that an act of injury toward the next head of the family would not end with just a scolding. The girls laughed and believed there was no way anyone could snitch on them without any proof, while Rei quietly remained in place. Snow suddenly raised a recording device with recording footage attack power +65535 and proudly activated Rex. Snow let out a small breath of relief with a soft phew after successfully recording everything. Snow worriedly asked if Rei-sama was hurt and bitterly called those branch family members unforgivable. Rei complained after getting hit by the pebble Hiro flicked while she silently looked toward the hallway with a steady expression. Snow happily declared that the recording would become evidence too, while tightly holding the camera in her hands. Snow begged Rei to please make a teary-eyed, hurt-looking face, while excited energy filled the hallway around them. Rei quietly stood before Snow while thoughts drifted through her heart that ever since Snow came her life had changed. Rei quietly remembered how Snow protected her from the branch family's abuse and harassment. By any means necessary, Snow raised her own standing and completely blocked their meddling. She had seen plenty of calculating people, so Rei understood there was no ulterior motive because Snow truly devoted herself to her. Rei realized that in the entire Sanjo family, Snow was the only one who stayed on her side. Later that night, Rei softly called Snow's name while lying beneath the blankets and quietly asked whether Snow would help her. Snow gently held Rei's hand on the bed and promised that someone she loved made her swear to help Rei. Snow softly revealed that person would come to help Rei someday, while Rei quietly repeated the words that person with confusion filling her thoughts. She happily spoke Hiro's name and told Rei that Hiro was out there and would surely make Rei smile. Rei silently stared into the darkness of the room while wondering who this Hiro truly was. Snow quietly faced Rei and admitted that it was not yet the time, but Sanjo Hiro would be reborn someday. Rei silently stared into the darkness while wondering what Snow truly meant by Hiro and whether such words could ever become real. Rei could not believe the promise of help and firmly thought there was no way because such a thing was absolutely impossible. Far away within the darkness, strange power spread through the room, while a glowing figure slowly appeared beside the black smoke. An enemy suddenly rushed forward with a violent scream demanding death, while raising a blade high above the air. Hiro coldly pointed out that shouting out a position like that made the blinding completely pointless. Hiro watched the darkness carefully and realized that enhanced projection should have been active, yet something still felt wrong. Hiro took a step forward while wondering if watching Estemel's swordsmanship for so long had made the enemy seem slow. Hiro watched the attack carefully and realized that this guy was moving slow. Hiro watched the enemy carefully and realized that enhanced projection was unnecessary because the attack could be dodged with minimal movement. Hiro understood that the remaining strength would not be enough to defeat them all at once and began searching for a way to drop them in one go. Hiro quietly thought about the battle and realized this was the first real fight since training with Master. Hiro realized that if movement stopped efficiently, then fuel would run out unintentionally, and if that happened, then the game would easily be over. Hiro understood that fighting every battle fully charged was impossible. Handling magic made Hiro feel glad for becoming aware of that before entering the academy. Hiro continued thinking carefully about what the most efficient spell to use right now would be. Hiro deciding that with what remained, this was the only option left. He raised a glowing light orb into the air. The men rushed forward while believing that fixation on visibility would become Hiro's downfall, and they shouted for Hiro to tremble at the fear of what appeared before dying. After using magic, Hiro altered the properties of an already active spell. Light orb active attribute light generation sphere spread through the catalyst, while snap pinged the catalyst and reconnecting changed its form. Out generate orb in action split generate bullet became a hidden trick for working around the limited formula slots in a magic catalyst device, while Hiro prepared the next move with sharp focus. The enemy rushed ahead with raised blades while a loud click echoed through the air, and both attackers reacted in shock at the sudden change before them. Hiro faced them directly, while the thought of wanting to taste of fear only actual LYC filled his mind. Hiro released light orb explosive shot, and the glowing sphere burst open with violent force across the battlefield. Blow-away carried through the attack as the explosion struck the enemies directly and sent their bodies flying through the shattered debris, while the air trembled from the impact. The blast destroyed the surroundings and shook the entire hall with heavy force. A sharp snap echoed as one figure crashed across the railing, while another man stared in shock at the destruction before him. Hiro continued the attack, and the enemies were overwhelmed by the explosion. Wooden tables shattered apart while broken pieces rained through the air. Hiro leaped toward Rei and crashed violently through the wreckage while shattered wooden tables burst beneath him. Hiro called out Rei through the destruction, while the ruined hall continued breaking apart under Hiro's relentless attack. Hiro rushed forward and reached out toward Rei while calling for her to come. Rei looked at Hiro with shaken confusion, while Snow remained in her thoughts. Rei remembered words about somewhere right before the friendly match with the elves, and questioned whether those words were really true. Rei sat alone on the bench while the memory continued to linger inside her heart. Rei received a report on the current state of the village after noticing that Snow had arrived. The quiet moment suddenly broke when Rei sensed an elf nearby and turned in surprise. A strange elf appeared while carrying Snow over her shoulder and holding bags in both hands. The sight left Rei frozen in disbelief, while shock spread through the area at once. Astemel introduced herself before recognizing Hiro as the younger sister of her beloved disciple Sanjo Hiro. Rei immediately connected the name Astemel to the highest-rank magician, who carried the title of Ancestor, and also stood as the strongest warrior among the elves. Astemel laughed brightly while praising Rei as a quite knowledgeable little sister, and the weight of that legendary name filled Rei with silent shock. Astemel revealed that even the capital of Alfheim carried out an investigation into Sanjo Hiro. Astemel believed his very being was nothing but rotten rumors and a lousy reputation. Rei understood that Astemel could not entrust Lapis to a man like that. Snow reacted in shock while admitting that after crossing swords with Hiro it changed Snow's mind. Rei realized that Hiro was trying to survive because he had some kind of purpose. Rei understood that even though Hiro life was being targeted by the Sanjo family, there was a presence about him that made everything else seem secondary. Rei narrowed her gaze toward Rei while speaking about an elf who had only been involved with Hiro for a few days and wondering how Astemel could already know anything about that man. Astemel suggested that they should go see for themselves. Astemel smiled proudly while asking Rei to please assist Hiro little sister because they were about to have a sparring match at the villa. Astemel believed only what had been seen with their own eyes, and Astemel recognized that Rei was that kind of person too. Snow quietly called out to Rei, while admitting that Snow's impression of that man had still not changed even now. Snow understood that there really were people like Hiro in this world. Snow revealed to Rei that someone who could live for the sake of keeping another alive truly existed. Snow believed that someone who could risk their very life in order to protect someone's smile also existed. Hiro moved through the shattered room while broken wood and shattered glass scattered around him. Hiro burst through the collapsing destruction while broken debris scattered everywhere, and Snow believed that person would surely be able to save Rei. Rei looked toward Hiro in shock while the voice calling Rei echoed through the chaos. Snow tried to deny the truth while the name Sanjo Hiro remained inside Snow's heart. Snow's trembling voice could only repeat that Hiro was Sanjo Hiro, while the image of Hiro overlapped with the gentle memory before Snow's eyes. Hiro held Rei tightly while broken debris scattered around them, and the battlefield continued to collapse. She looked toward Hiro in shock while the words "Hiro has been reborn" echoed through the scene. Rei called out Hiro-san while staring at him with trembling feelings, and Rei admitted that it was not that Rei was admitting Hiro changed. Silence remained between them while Hiro stayed beside Rei, and Rei questioned since when did Hiro become this strong. Hiro carried firm resolve in his expression, while Hiro declared that to risk Hiro life for Yuri was the one and only thing Hiro must do. Silence spread through the ruined room, while Hiro struggled to catch his breath. Exhaustion weighed heavily over his body, while broken debris scattered across the ruined room around him. Hiro wiped the sweat from his face. The light orb spell had nearly drained all his mana, and somehow the guards were finally gone. Rei, while staring at Hiro, she said Hiro-san had no reason to push himself like that, and he had no reason to go this far for her. Hiro raised his voice with complete conviction. Of course, the future of Yuri stood above everything else. Yuri came first while Hiro himself came after, and everyone else followed behind. If it was for the future of Yuri, then Hiro would even risk his life for this. Hiro turned away while carrying the sword across his back. The future of Yuri remained the only reason behind his actions. Rei stared at him in silence while hearing those familiar words again. Rei quietly thought that Hiro had started talking about the future for Yuri once more. Hiro remained unconcerned while trying to reassure her. Hiro finally asked about the incident at the Sanjo estate. There was no need to worry. Rei lowered her gaze while softly wondering if that was truly the answer. Hiro looked directly at Rei, while promising that no matter what happened he would protect her. His voice remained steady, while those words reached her without hesitation. Rei stayed seated in silence while holding a hand close to her chest. Her thoughts stopped for a moment after hearing Hiro's promise. Hiro suddenly felt an enemy appeared above him and launched an enhanced projectile straight toward him. Surprise spread across Hiro's face as the attack closed in without warning. Hiro tried to react, but the attack already reached him. The enhanced projectile slammed into Hiro, and a violent impact burst across his body. The violent impact shattered the glass, and Hiro's body flew out from the building. Broken glass scattered around him, while the street stretched far below. Hiro quickly grabbed the edge with his sword, and desperately held on while his body hung high above the ground. The wind roared around him as glass fragments continued falling below. The enemy rushed across the shattered building with a sword in hand, while broken glass exploded through the air. Rei remained inside the destroyed room, as the fierce attack continued around her. Hiro crashed through another layer of glass, and screamed in pain while countless fragments scattered around him. The sharp sound of clack echoed from his sword while the battle violently spread across the building walls. Hiro desperately held on with his sword as his body continued falling side the building. Hiro tightly held onto his sword, while a strained groan escaped from him, and shattered glass continued falling around his body. Rei quickly looked toward Hiro, and Hiro-san escaped from her lips after seeing him hanging outside the building. Rei stepped through the destroyed room while the enemy faced her with a cold expression. The enemy mocked whether Hiro was truly Rei's sibling, and questioned how long Rei planned to keep wasting time there, while the fierce battle continued around them. Rei stared toward the enemy and realized Hiro had brought the magic catalyst device with him. Tension spread across the ruined room as Rei faced the enemy without stepping back. The woman revealed that this was a trump card and admitted that this long life had not been lived for nothing until now, and ordered Rei to step aside. Rei stepped forward and spread both arms wide while standing directly before the enemy. Determination filled Rei's expression as the enemy quietly accepted that this was Rei's answer. Hiro painfully helped onto the shattered edge. Frustration spread across Hiro's face as a strained curse followed after those words. Rei firmly declared that those were the words of the maid that Rei believed in. Rei then admitted that the maid had risked her life to fight and protect Rei, and because of that Rei chose to believe in her. The older woman silently listened while tension remained heavy across the ruined battlefield. The older woman questioned whether Rei still believed such nonsense, even after facing betrayal again. Suspicion filled the woman's gaze while heavy tension remained between them. The woman coldly warned that Rei would be betrayed. The woman declared that Hiro had been turning a blind eye this whole time, and that people did not change so easily. The older woman declared that Rei should already know by now that beyond that faint hope only despair existed. The heavy words deeply shook Rei. Shock spread across Rei's face while hesitation slowly filled her mind. A weak breath escaped from Rei as her hand pressed against her chest. The older woman slowly approached Rei and ordered Rei to stay still. The soft sound of a jingle echoed from the woman's hand. Hiro looked toward Rei and noticed that posture, while Rei stood frozen inside the ruined room. Heavy silence surrounded Rei as fear quietly spread through her trembling body. Hiro realized that when Rei's heart reached its limit, she tightly gripped a certain accessory and suddenly froze up. Rei held the accessory close as if praying to something while painful emotions filled her expression. Hiro suddenly realized that Rei had been holding something back at the observatory too. The memory sharply returned to Hiro's mind as tension spread across his expression. The soft sound of a jingle echoed from the accessory in Rei's hand, while Hiro silently stared toward her. Hiro cursed himself and realized that realization should have come much sooner. Frustration filled Hiro as he questioned how such an obvious sign had gone unnoticed all this time. Hiro could not clearly hear the conversation with Rei, but the entire situation felt sickening to him. Anger slowly rose inside Hiro while he stared toward the older woman. Hiro accused the woman of digging into Rei's wounds only to shut her up. Fury filled Hiro's voice as the harsh accusation echoed through the ruined room. Rage exploded from Hiro as he cursed the damn old hag. Hiro demanded to know what had been said to Rei and shouted whether the woman had ever understood how Rei truly felt. The older woman coldly declared that there was no need to understand anything. Rei had only been expected to become a pretty face and the air body and a puppet that could display the family power. The woman then blamed Rei for everything that had happened. The harsh words claimed that if Rei had simply stayed quiet and obeyed, then none of this would have happened, and that Rei had brought all of it upon herself. Hiro glared toward the older woman and cursed the bastard, while anger violently burned across his face. The older woman coldly warned Hiro not to bark and declared that such a fate belonged to the Sanjo family. The woman then raised the weapon toward Hiro and shouted that once Hiro was gone, everything would finally fall into place. A cruel smile spread across the woman's face as Hiro was ordered to die honorably. Hiro desperately thought about how to survive this situation, while mana was almost completely gone and one arm was already badly damaged. Frustration and pressure heavily filled Hiro's mind as no path forward could be seen. Hiro suddenly turned after hearing weak cries calling for Papa and Mama from nearby. A small injured girl tearfully reached out while begging for help. The painful sight froze Hiro in place as young Rei's trembling voice continued calling for someone to save her. Hiro gritted his teeth while painful determination spread across his face. Hiro finally accepted the truth and realized that was right. Hiro looked toward the injured Rei and understood that the only one who could help her now was Hiro himself. The desperate realization strongly struck Hiro's heart, while Rei silently watched nearby. The older woman reacted in shock, and the sharp sound of a click echoed from the weapon. Hiro jumped forward while raising the weapon above his head. A furious scream burst from Hiro as debris scattered around him. The older woman reacted in shock while another fighter rushed forward with a blade to stop Hiro's attack. The enemy rushed forward with a drawn blade and fiercely blocked Hiro's attack. Violent force burst between them as the clash shook the shattered battlefield. Hiro shouted that only Hiro could do this while desperately pushing forward through the fierce resistance. Hiro successfully landed the attack directly onto the enemy face, and the powerful strike split the enemy glasses apart. The enemy staggered back while Hiro remained kneeling nearby with heavy breaths escaping from him. Rei silently watched the sudden turn of the battle as tension filled the shattered room. Hiro stared toward the enemy and realized those eyes had been seen before. The enemy touched the exposed face and revealed that those eyes belonged to someone whose heart was controlled by the Sanjo family. A dark expression spread across the enemy face while the truth heavily filled the ruined room. The older woman shouted in confusion and demanded to know what was happening. Panic rose across the woman's face as Hiro continued fighting despite being half dead. Hiro immediately raised the weapon and fiercely blocked the incoming blade before another violent clash exploded between them. Broken debris scattered around the battlefield as Hiro desperately pushed back against the enemy attack. The enemy mercilessly continued attacking Hiro again and again while violent clashes filled the room. Hiro desperately blocked each strike as the sharp sound of metal echoed through the air. The power inside Hiro's weapon gradually faded, and the blade could no longer properly form. Panic spread across Hiro as mana completely ran out during the fierce battle. Hiro desperately tried to reconstruct the weakening blade over and over while the enemy continued pressing forward without mercy. Rei silently watched the fierce battle, while shock slowly spread across her face. The violent clashes continued shaking the ruined room as Hiro and the enemy exchanged attacks without stopping. Hiro fiercely swung the weakened weapon toward the enemy, while shattered debris scattered through the air. The enemy immediately countered, and another violent clash exploded between them. Rei softly called out to Hiro and pleaded that this was enough and begged Hiro to stop. Hiro immediately rejected those words and shouted that it was not over yet. Hiro shouted that it hurt and that Rei was suffering. Hiro understood that Rei wanted someone to help her and did not want to continue living under pain. Rage filled Hiro's heart as Hiro demanded to know why Rei had to endure such a cruel life, and allow that old hag to decide how Rei should live. The enemy moved without mercy and drove a powerful kick into Hiro's face. Hiro's body staggered backward from the heavy impact, while pain spread across Hiro's expression. Rei cried out through trembling tears and revealed that the fate of Sanjo Rei was the reason behind everything. Hiro refused to back away from that kind of fate. The enemy raised the blade once more and prepared to unleash the final attack. Rei watched in shock as the enemy struck Hiro's body without mercy. The enemy gaze remained cold while Hiro endured the attack and coughed out blood from the heavy wounds. Pain covered Hiro's body, yet Hiro still forced himself to move. Hiro lifted the damaged weapon with trembling hands while gasping for breath. Determination still burned inside Hiro's heart as Hiro declared that the enemy should smash it to pieces. Hiro endured the enemy attacks while blood continued falling from Hiro's wounded body. Even as the enemy struck again, Hiro kept moving forward and declared that Rei was only Rei and nothing more and nothing less. Hiro refused to accept Rei as a line from some old hag script. Rei stood frozen while listening to Hiro's desperate words. Hiro looked toward Rei and demanded for Rei to speak with Rei's own mouth, because there had to be something Rei truly wanted hidden inside Rei's heart. The old woman stared across the ruined room in disbelief and declared that such words were unforgivable and impossible to speak even as a joke. Hiro stood covered in blood and wounds, yet Hiro still forced out a weak smile. Hiro rejected those unforgivable words and declared that everything was forgivable because today was a special day after all. Hiro smiled through blood and pain while reminding everyone that it was Rei's birthday. The old woman could only stare in confusion while the enemy watched without speaking. Rei stood silently in shock as the memory of those words reached her heart and reminded her to remember Rei's birthday. Hiro continued speaking through broken breaths and called Rei a simple, ordinary little sister with a small wish like that. Hiro declared that as Rei's older brother Hiro could at least grant that much for her. Rei clenched both hands tightly and listened in silence while tears slowly formed. The old woman shouted that everything would be over if Rei spoke Rei's true feelings. Fear and anger filled the old woman's expression as the old woman demanded to know whether Rei understood how much hardship the women of past generations endured to seize real power. Rei admitted that those thoughts had always remained inside Rei's heart, and that Rei kept wondering why Rei had even been born. Rei remembered how life became harder and harder after entering the Sanjo family, and how nobody there had ever truly wanted Rei. Pain filled Rei's voice as Rei questioned why Rei even existed in this world. Rei lowered Rei's head and finally revealed that those feelings were the reason behind everything, and the reason Rei continued suffering alone. Rei admitted that Rei had always wanted someone to celebrate Rei's birthday. Tears filled Rei's eyes while Rei finally revealed the lonely wish hidden inside Rei's heart. Hiro smiled through the blood and pain while wishing Rei a happy birthday. Hiro repeated the birthday wish for Rei once again, and fulfilled the wish Rei had carried for so long. The accessory slipped from Rei's hand and fell to the floor. Rei's body trembled as tears poured from Rei's eyes. Broken cries escaped from Rei's lips, while Rei finally released the sadness hidden inside Rei's heart. Hiro watched Rei quietly from the ruined floor. The enemy with the sharp click as the blade regained its form. Hiro stood frozen while the enemy rushed forward with killing force and launched the attack straight toward Hiro's left shoulder. Hiro felt fear crawl through his body while the enemy closed the distance in an instant and swung the blade without mercy. Rei cried out in panic while the old woman grinned with twisted joy. The enemy stared at Rei and called her his little sister, while dark power gathered around his hand, and the blade rose once more. Hiro prepared a special birthday present for Rei, while promising to show Rei something special. Hiro clenched his fist while every remaining ounce of strength gathered into a single attack, and the crushing blow slammed directly into the enemy's face. The crushing impact sent the enemy flying into the air before the body slammed violently against the glass wall. Hiro refused to fall and believed victory still belonged to him, while the Estemel style remained engraved deeply within his heart. His master's teachings continued guiding Hiro forward, and those lessons became the strength that would allow Hiro to seize victory. Hiro stood over the fallen enemy, while blood covered his torn body. Rei stayed silent while watching Hiro continue standing after everything that happened. Hiro held the sword lodged in his shoulder, while slowly pulling it out with shaking hands. Blood continued running down his arm. The enemy only received a single hit before falling to the ground. The difference in swordsmanship had been obvious from the start. The sword slipped from his hand before falling heavily onto the floor. Hiro struggled to breathe while blood continued running down his injured arm and stained clothes. The old woman stared at Hiro with disbelief filling his face. Hiro looked toward the old man while forcing himself to stay upright. The old woman questioned why Hiro would not fall and wondered if Hiro had aged during the short time they had not seen each other. The old woman raised the gun toward Hiro while a cruel laugh escaped from her mouth. Hiro remained silent while his exhausted body struggled to stay standing and dark marks spread across his injured arm. The old woman pulled the trigger, and the bullet struck Hiro's injured arm. The old woman laughed again while staring directly at Hiro. Hiro had already become completely worn out, and finishing Hiro off would be easy for her now. Hiro suddenly pressed his injured hand against the old woman's face and forced her backward with a powerful impact. Hiro quietly asked the old woman how she looked in her eyes now. Hiro revealed his true feelings while asking her what she truly saw. Hiro thought about how Rei had been forced to live like a puppet of the Sanjo family while being surrounded by trash like them. Hiro thought about how Rei had no choice except playing the role of the hated one. Hiro thought about Rei living in loneliness with nobody beside her. Hiro thought about the feelings of the girl who cried alone. Hiro wondered if those bastards could ever understand those feelings. Since this was a good opportunity, Hiro decided to tell him about that child. Eating a big cake on her birthday became one of the dreams held close within Rei's heart. Running around and playing until completely exhausted sounded like the kind of happiness that child wished for every single day. Sleeping in a warm futon while dreaming of her beloved parents remained another precious desire that never disappeared from her thoughts. Being finally united with the one they loved became the greatest wish carried deep within that lonely heart. That was simply how fate worked within the Sanjo family's narrow and suffocating view. Hiro shouted that they would not dare tie Rei down any further. Anger filled Hiro while wounds covered his battered body. Hiro grabbed the old woman and warned him not to keep talking with such high and mighty nonsense. Hiro demanded the price for making someone's little sister cry. Hiro glared at them and demanded to know how they planned to pay everything back. The old woman stared at Hiro in disbelief while quietly questioning if that person truly was Hiro. A quiet click echoed through the room as a gun was pulled out beside them. A terrifying aura burst out from the old woman as she rushed toward Hiro with overwhelming force. She attacked without hesitation while the powerful aura wrapped around her like a storm. Hiro coughed painfully as blood scattered from the attack. Enhancement magic continued flowing through Hiro's battered body. The old woman pointed the gun toward Hiro while shouting that Hiro must stop acting like a big brother now. Anger covered her face as she declared that Hiro was nothing but dead weight who only happened to carry the Sanjo name. Rei immediately protected Hiro within her arms while desperately telling him to get back. The old woman pointed the gun forward and ordered Rei to move aside. She warned that Rei would get hit if she stayed there. The old woman furiously shouted for Rei to get out of the way. Rage and confusion spread across her face while the gun remained aimed forward. A sharp clink suddenly echoed through the room as part of the gun violently broke apart. The old woman froze in disbelief while staring at the broken gun in shock. Estemel suddenly appeared while holding a sword in her hand. Estemel explained that whenever her beloved disciple invited her to lunch, she came to see what it was about. The old woman froze in fear, while shock spread across her face after Estemel appeared before her. Estemel calmly asked whether people in Japan used magic catalyst devices instead of chopsticks. Rei looked at Estemel in surprise while the atmosphere inside the room immediately changed after Estemel joined the conflict. Estemel declared that she had no interest in the Sanjo family squabbles. Hiro had also told Estemel to stay out of it, but the situation had already gone too far. Lapis warned them not to hurt her friend any further. Lapis stepped forward and declared that she would become their opponent if they continued. Her cap flew away as her true appearance became visible before everyone. Shock immediately spread through the room after the name Lapis Krulalamat was spoken. The old woman stared at Lapis in shock, while realizing that a princess, along with the monster of the holy capital Alphine, had appeared before them. She could not believe that a lineup like this had gathered without the Sanjo family knowing. She realized that Hiro had prepared a trump card for this situation. Hiro explained that the item could be used after the opponent could no longer play any more cards. Hiro proudly declared that age was not meaningless, while a confident grin appeared across his face. The old woman stared at Hiro while anger and disbelief covered her face. Hiro's name escaped from her mouth. Hiro suddenly realized that his vision was already fading. Weakness spread through Hiro's battered body, while someone desperately called out Hiro's name. Hiro slowly regained consciousness while looking around the room in confusion. Hiro questioned where he was and wondered if they had returned to the villa and the grand hall. A soft voice quietly responded while someone leaned close beside Hiro. Pain spread through Hiro's battered body as consciousness fully returned. Rei quietly looked down at Hiro, while relief appeared across her face. Rei gently asked whether Hiro was awake while sitting beside him. Hiro rested against Rei's lap, while bandages covered his injured body. Hiro nervously questioned why Rei was giving him a lap pillow while resting so close beside him. Rei calmly explained that it was a necessary procedure and asked Hiro not to misunderstand. Rei declared that there were no other pillows to be found in the annex, so there had been no other choice. Hiro quietly noticed that Rei was hiding the extra pillows behind her body. Rei suddenly threw the pillow away in panic, while Hiro remained lying beneath her. The pillow flew across the room and struck Mikage Archers directly as a surprised cry escaped from her. A cheerful voice called out that Mikage Archers had also come there. The noisy atmosphere quickly filled the room after the unexpected hit. Hiro looked toward Rei and noticed how suddenly Rei had switched gears. Rei quietly apologized for the matter involving the Sanjo family. Rei admitted that there had never been any intention to drag Hiro into such a painful situation. Hiro calmly answered that the one who should apologize was himself. Hiro explained that after the dinner details had taken place, Snow started keeping a close watch on him. Rei looked toward Hiro with uncertainty, while asking if the academy had really been discussing how to erase her. Rei softly called Hiro Onisama, while questioning if Hiro had known everything from the very beginning according to the game's scenario. Rei had been chosen as the next head of the Sanjo family according to the old woman's plan. Rei was forced to carry out Hiro's disposal as the family representative. At the final stage of the plan, Hiro would lose control and become isolated before eventually being assassinated. That had been the cruel truth waiting for him. Rei never hated her brother enough to want him dead and never protected him because of duty. Rei stayed beside Hiro until the very end because she was a gentle person. Hiro quietly realized that Rei had endured everything alone while continuing to protect him until today. Hiro weakly apologized because everything had happened because of him. Rei strongly denied that everything was Hiro's fault. Rei admitted that the real reason was because she never had the courage to stop it herself. Hiro weakly laughed while thanking Rei. Hiro explained that giving them a good beating should have settled things for now. Hiro also promised that from now on he would help Rei become happy together with the original protagonist. Rei placed food beside Hiro and explained that rice porridge had been prepared for him. Hiro immediately admitted that the smell was nice because hunger had already started growing inside his exhausted body. Rei quietly moved the spoon toward Hiro while trying to feed him. Hiro awkwardly refused and explained that eating alone should still be possible once his right hand could move again. Rei calmly declared that feeding Hiro was impossible because there was no spoon for him. Hiro quickly pointed out that Rei was already holding one in her hand. Rei quietly answered that the spoon belonged to her and was not for Onisama. The awkward atmosphere between them continued growing. Rei explained that the porridge had been made by his little sister. Hiro reacted in horror, while questioning whether Rei truly expected him to eat it. Rei nervously asked if it tasted good, and admitted that Snow had already tasted it, so at least it was not poisonous. Hiro's Yuri senses warned him that if the affection was not lowered, then things would become bad. Hiro declared that the porridge tasted like absolute garbage and felt like eating paste. Hiro even explained that rice grains could be used as a substitute for glue. Rei wondered if Hiro was bluntly trying to scold and encourage her at the same time, and called him clumsy. Rei softly asked why only Isama, unlike other people, did not lie. Hiro calling the porridge insanely good, and so good it almost made him choke. Hiro answered that pulling back would not work anymore, and pushed forward. Rei became happy from those words and promised to try a little harder. Hiro suffered, as every action only increased the affection around him. Despair filled every side around Hiro, while Rei shyly brought up the lap pillow again. Rei quietly asked how the lap pillow felt, and waited for Hiro's answer. Rei explained with reference materials that women of appropriate age could directly stimulate the senses. Hiro became confused by Rei's serious words while staring at the black tights around him. Hiro admitted that men could become aroused by women's black tights too, and called the situation complete cheating. Hiro declared himself the guardian of Yuri and desperately tried to resist the world around him. Rei innocently claimed that no strange feelings existed at all, and quietly asked what aroused meant. Hiro could only stare at Rei in disbelief. Rei softly accepted the answer with an awkward smile, and asked if encouraging Hiro's arousal would help a little more. Hiro froze in silence while Rei nervously moved closer and quietly told Hiro to go ahead. Rei nervously moved on top of Hiro and begged him to please enjoy the moment. Hiro screamed in panic after seeing Rei's black tights so close to him and desperately tried to stop the situation. Hiro cried out that this was never the kind of development he wanted. Hiro shouted loudly while Rei held him down and called out to Maid for help. Rei stayed frozen after hearing Maid's voice near the door. Maid walked into the room and wondered why everything had become so noisy. Rei quickly looked toward Mikage while still sitting on top of Hiro, and the strange scene finally became clear to everyone in the room. Hiro shouted that Rei is a total pervert and wondered what kind of upbringing the Sanjo family gave. Rei became embarrassed and insisted that was terrible and that Rei did not give Snow any weird misunderstandings. The maid quietly asked, "Did Rei?" Hiro looked up at Rei in confusion and only let out a soft sound. The maid stared at Rei with a frightening look and asked if Hiro did it with Rei-sama. Rei turned pale after hearing those words while Hiro could only let out a shocked. The ancient covenant began to move and declared that anyone who had laid hands on Rei would face its judgment. The maid raised the strange weapon and declared that death is what the maid must give. Hiro stared in disbelief and asked where the maid even pulled that thing out from. Rei covered her face in embarrassment and insisted they did not do it. Rei admitted that even if it came to that, it would be written in the texts in a wholesome manner. Hiro panicked and begged Rei not to make the situation any worse. Hiro shouted in disbelief and asked what on earth Rei was using as a reference. Hiro exposed Rei by revealing that Rei had an R-rated comic. Rei desperately defended herself and insisted it was not like that because Rei even checked the age restriction. Hiro called Rei a filthy pervert after learning it was a magazine filled with depictions of people coupling like beasts. The maid sat quietly in silence while Rei froze in embarrassment beside Hiro. The maid moved closer to Hiro and gently held him while asking if there should not be any problem with this. Rei stared at them in shock after seeing the maid place a finger near Hiro with a playful expression. Hiro immediately became nervous and admitted that this was definitely a problem. Hiro's face tensed as he struggled with the situation and tried to make sense of what was happening. Rei wiped her brow and forced a small embarrassed smile and said even though she went this far. She asked Hiro if Snow's lap is better. Snow leaned forward with a mischievous grin and teasing tone and asked if this one feels better. Hiro shouted in frustration, what are they aiming for? He added they pull this kind of torture on him when he cannot even move. Snow leans in with a bright smile and calls it a reward. Hiro worked hard for this, didn't he? While Snow steps forward and Rei insists Snow thinks that is enough. Hands pressed down as Rei forces control and declares he must be wanting to come back over here. Hiro resists under the pressure and Snow rejects it with force. That's not the case as his body strains against her hold. Pain surges through his neck as it twists, and he realizes it's twisting his neck that was fine is now getting twisted and the greatest taboo in Yuri unfolds, is laying bare a man's carnal desire. Faced with a crisis where his body might react against his will, the countermeasure Hiro chose was overdose, as his body arches under the strain and the force begins to take hold, applying an abrupt overload to the brain as pressure surges and thought begins to distort under the impact. A violent spark strikes through his mind as the brain reacts, and the overload spreads through every nerve. Expel the blood as force gathers and pressure rises through his face, while concentrating the blood flow to the head to block the nose. Dull the consciousness through oxygen deprivation as the strain deepens, and his awareness begins to fade under the control of his own action. In the end, Hiro collapses under the effect, and Rei calls out his name as his body gives in. A faint voice escapes as only a Wiko forms while his consciousness slips away. Hiro forced his damaged body to move while painful breaths escaped from his chest. Hiro desperately begged them to please date girls. Hiro wished for girls to stay together with him. Hiro carried the dying wish that they should become happy together without him. Hiro admitted that escape by fainting was the old version of himself. Snow stood nearby while carefully watching Hiro's weakened state. Rei remained frozen after hearing Hiro called by name while silence quietly surrounded them. Whenever Rei gained something precious, she always remembered the fear of losing it. Rei eventually let those feelings go, while pushing them far away from herself. That truth became the reason she sent Snow to a different place. Rei later learned that his brother had taken up residence there. Hiro stood beside Snow while Rei regret from those days quietly remained inside her heart. Rei quietly held the accessory close while remembering the dear friend she loved. Whenever things became painful, Rei would clutch the heart-shaped accessory woven from that thread and endure the moment alone. Rei tried many times over and over to place it somewhere far beyond reach. Rei wished for it to stay somewhere nobody could take away again. Rei remained seated in silence while accepting everything from the very beginning. Rei believed remaining resigned was the only way to continue living like that. Hiro suddenly appeared before Rei while softly turning back toward her, while his presence alone disrupted the feelings Rei tried so desperately to bury. A small snicker quietly escaped from Rei while the faint smile slowly formed across her lips. Rei quietly realized there was no longer any need to let go anymore. Snow leaned forward beside Hiro while loudly calling for Hiro to get up. Snow desperately shouted while trying to pull him back from unconsciousness. Hiro slowly sat up on the bed while checking the condition of his body. Hiro quietly realized that even those serious injuries had already healed quickly because this world's treatments used magic. Rei continued visiting Hiro under the excuse of nursing him back to health. Rei softly explained that Hiro still needed time to recuperate. Lipus standing nearby quietly listened while Rei admitted that Hiro had already been healed for ages. The detached residence gradually became even livelier. Rei appeared to be getting along well with the elves too, probably. Lapis quietly challenged whether Raisin truly had the authority to decide such things. Rei answered without hesitation that it was her property, so the rules would naturally belong to her. Before Hiro realized it, time had already continued moving forward. Hiro slowly became accustomed to that noisy clamor surrounding everyday life. Time eventually passed by in the blink of an eye. Hiro walked beneath the falling flower petals while students gathered around the academy entrance. A girl quietly stood behind Hiro while watching him from a distance. The academy gate stood tall while new students continued arriving one after another. A girl quietly looked ahead while realizing that at last it begins from here. Hiro faced the academy with a faint smile. Hiro realized this academy arc was where the real show starts. Hiro quietly confirmed that was right. A girl stood near the academy entrance while flower petals drifted through the air. The single-word protagonist quietly crossed his mind while Hiro walked past the school gates nearby. Her attention slowly fell toward the weapon hanging at his side, while unspoken thoughts quietly remained inside her mind. A girl quietly smiled while a soft sound escaped from her lips. The name Sakura Sakura became tied while at last the true protagonist had finally appeared. The next issue would plunge everything into the school arc. Huja Magic Academy stood beneath the drifting flower petals, while Hiro immediately admitted the obvious truth. Hiro had transferred into a girls' school just like that. Yuri game schools were generally all girls' schools, and Huja Magic Academy followed that rule as well. When depicting romance between girls, the presence of men was treated as nothing but unpleasant. Why somebody would enroll in a girls' school after saying that much? The word sounded like asking whether Hiro was trying to die. Hiro raised one finger, while desperately asking everyone to please calm down, because Hiro had by no means betrayed Yuri. Hiro revealed the reason everything remained possible. There was one all-girls school that boys could attend to. The campus of the academy was ridiculously huge. Most new students ended up getting lost while crowds continued gathering around the large guide board. Hiro quietly stepped through the academy grounds while wondering whether this school was far too complicated. Hiro arrived at school early after splitting up from Lapis and Ray. Hiro also understood that meeting the protagonist normally had become necessary. Hiro decided waiting inside a classroom would probably be easier like this. Someone questioned whether that person, who just passed by, was truly a guy. Another student could only stare in disbelief while quietly repeating "no way a guy." The girls quietly wondered whether Hiro was simply a cross-dressing boy. Another voice noticed that there seemed to be a few boys inside their class. Hiro expected this reaction because men were naturally hated within that purity. Men in this world were allowed to attend girls' schools. There were boys' schools too, but only a very small number of elites could enter them. He continued walking through the academy hallways toward Class 1A. He understood that a boy's school life was hell itself. A girl suddenly came flying through the hallway at terrifying speed before crashing directly into the floor nearby. A painful cough escaped from her mouth while dust scattered around the corridor, while he quietly thinking that the worst possible outcome would be getting treated like a slave. A confused sound quietly escaped from Hiro while staring at the collapsed girl. The girl suddenly screamed while desperately scrambling away in panic across the hallway. A tall girl suddenly appeared near the doorway, while a quiet era escaped from her lips. The girl lightly covered her mouth, while wondering whether Hiro was another boy. Hiro immediately remembered the dangerous rumors surrounding this academy. Certain factions were completely devoted to eliminating men. Ophelia loudly declared that she would drill the proper attitude toward nobility into that pitiful commoner. Ophelia suddenly froze in frustration after realizing her magic had failed to work. A sharp gaze escaped from her while irritation quickly covered her face. Ophelia ran off in complete shock after realizing there existed a woman stronger than herself. Another student quietly reminded everyone who served as cannon fodder would always end up like this. Ophelia wondered whether girls these days avoided the sun too much. Hiro remembered that originally in the game Hiro would clash with the Ojusama. After that, both sides would continue fighting through a long war of words. Seeing the situation unfold like this caused the protagonist to become wary of Sanjo Hiro. Ophelia immediately declared Daiman, while Twiro answered with Drill Curls. Hiro quickly realized that avoiding unnecessary actions and avoiding a war of words with the Ojusama had become important. Hiro decided that time was needed to calm down the protagonist before the situation became even worse. Ophelia proudly stood before Hiro, while declaring that the choice Hiro should take was apologizing for offending her. Hiro remained silent after hearing those words. Ophelia demanded to know whether Hiro would not apologize already. Ophelia became furious after Hiro continued ignoring her while reaching forward in frustration. Before Ophelia could continue, Sukiori suddenly grabbed her hand. The sudden movement immediately stopped her in place. Ophelia froze for a moment after realizing what had happened. Surprise quietly spread across her face. Ophelia stared at Hiro after hearing that Sukiori looked troubled. Her anger slowly paused for a moment while confusion appeared across her face. Sukiori quietly asked Ophelia why she would not step back. Sukiori demanded to know just who Ophelia thought she was for suddenly stepping into the situation like that. She calmly introduced herself as Tsukiori Sakura while standing directly between Hiro and Ophelia. Hiro instantly recognized Tsukiori Sakura as the cheat protagonist. Tsukiori Sakura possessed outstanding growth correction and could use all kinds of magic catalyst devices. An enormous magical power quietly flowed from Tsukiori, while the surrounding classmates immediately sensed it too. Ophelia declared that a top-class lady like herself would never give her name in return again, because it would stain her style. Ophelia proudly introduced herself as a member of the Margarine family. Tsukiori coldly declared that none of it mattered and ordered Ophelia to move aside because she was standing in the way. Hiro quietly realized that remaining silent had caused the protagonist to start protecting him instead. Hiro decided that if things continued like this, then everything would have to be faced seriously with everything he had. Hiro looked scared too while Ophelia kept acting annoying with her disuwa attitude. Ophelia realized Tsukiori kept provoking him no matter how much she stared at him. Hiro decided to act like a pitiful man and use this chance to get closer to the protagonist. Ophelia reached for her necklace and accepted that if it had come to this, then a duel would begin. The door crashed aside as Ophelia stepped forward and declared the duel with confidence. Ophelia loudly declared a duel and sent the challenge directly to Tsukiori. Tsukiori calmly answered that she could hear Ophelia clearly while drawing her sword without hesitation. Ophelia formally requested the duel, and Tsukiori accepted it with a simple sure and any time. Ophelia proudly stared at Tsukiori and declared that composed face would soon start crying. Hiro noticed that Ophelia carried the Margarine family state-owned magical catalyst device, while Tsukiori only used initial equipment. At a glance the duel looked unfair, and Hiro believed Ophelia already held certain victory. Hiro recognized the Margarine family heirloom called Ophelia of Indulgence. The necklace-type magical detonation catalyst only carried a startling formula count of 1, and could not even properly use offensive magic. Hiro noticed that Ophelia kept challenging the protagonist with such trash equipment. Instead of mocking her, Hiro started wanting to cheer her on. Ophelia looked confused and demanded to know why, while Hiro could only answer with uneasy hesitation. Tsukiori stood calmly with her weapon, while Hiro realized he had reflexively sided with the cannon fodder. Hiro disliked the situation because the difference in strength felt far too big. Ophelia ordered both of them to watch closely, while Hiro rushed forward beside her. Tsukiori lowered herself into position and prepared to face them fair and square. Ophelia shouted Tsukiori's name with fierce determination as the clash finally began. Tsukiori attacked without hesitation, while Hiro quickly raised his weapon to block her strike. Ophelia cried out in shock as the sudden clash exploded between them. Hiro felt the weight of Tsukiori's attack and realized this was only her initial level. The clash echoed through the hallway as both blades crashed against each other. Hiro awkwardly admitted that he had only reacted without thinking while Ophelia stared in surprise at the sudden exchange. Ophelia froze for a moment as Tsukiori leaped into the air with fierce speed while Hiro stared in shock at the sudden attack. Hiro pulled Ophelia back in panic, while Tsukiori rushed past them with deadly force. Hiro realized that Ophelia had become the bait that drew Tsukiori into striking range, and the clash only grew more intense. Tsukiori rushed forward while Hiro shouted that the cannon fodder was over there, and quickly apologized while claiming to be on Tsukiori's side. Ophelia panicked and begged them to stop fighting with her stuck in the middle. Tsukiori continued the attack with fair and square determination, while Hiro tried to avoid the strikes. Ophelia cried out in frustration, while shouted back asking if anyone was even listening. Ophelia stumbled back in panic, while Hiro chased after the fight with his weapon raised. The strange battle paused for a moment, while Ophelia continued standing proudly in the middle of the chaos. Tsukiori stared at Ophelia in silence while questioning who Ophelia truly was. Ophelia loudly declared the name Ophelia von Margarine with pride, while Hiro nervously muttered that Tsukiori seemed to be asking for his name. Ophelia proudly declared that Hiro was now her personal slave, while Hiro stared in disbelief and questioned why this situation had happened. Ophelia pulled Hiro closer and allowed him off with only this much for now while Hiro struggled to breathe from the sudden grip. Tsukiori silently watched the strange exchange while Hiro continued suffering under Ophelia's overwhelming behavior. Ophelia relaxed proudly beside him and acted as if everything had already been settled. Ophelia wondered whether Hiro had been born to become her slave, while proudly claiming that even the seating order placed him beside her. Hiro could only stare in disbelief. The seating order that should have been normal somehow turned Hiro into Ophelia's personal slave. Hiro sat quietly between them, while Tsukiori continued acting with noble pride. Ophelia wondered whether Tsukiori sided with her because of Oju-sama, while Tsukiori calmly remained silent. Tsukiori stayed quiet with an unreadable expression, while Ophelia puffed her cheeks and repeatedly humphed in dissatisfaction. Hiro warned that constantly following his like a stray dog would only make Tsukiori more intimidated toward him, so should stop around there. Hiro looked at Tsukiori's reaction and felt that he had probably been disliked at the very least. Even so, Hiro believed that the first contact had been a success. Hiro continued thinking about the happy ending of Tsukuri Sakura and the heroines. Hiro could not achieve that goal if he attracted hatred like the original story. Hiro decided that the course of action from here was clear. Hiro first planned to break free from a score of 0. At the academy, an A score check was conducted once every half year, and the score determined placement from Class A at the top to Class E at the bottom, through midterm and final exams. Hiro understood that the protagonist and the main heroine did not fall from class, so raising his score was essential if he wanted to remain there beside them. Hiro also realized that raising his own strength to the maximum was necessary to support Tsukiyori from behind and help progress her route. Hiro remembered almost getting overwhelmed during the earlier duel and understood that continuing like this would not be good enough. If Hiro cannot keep up with Tsukiyori's strength, then there is no way to pull something like that off. Besides that, there is even the possibility that Tsukiyori could die. If she dies, then neither Lapis nor Rei can be happy. In the worst case, even hesitation could make Hiro become the protagonist's shield and fall. If Hiro is going to protect her, then Hiro cannot just do whatever he pleases. Even the approaching death flags will be intercepted and smashed down. The thought of focusing everything on raising the protagonist stayed clear in Hiro's mind. The resolve to make sure Tsukiyori does not die. Hiro accepted that having to do both was the tough part of being a Yuri gamer. The teacher stumbled into the classroom in panic after discovering that the door was broken. The terrible sight became the first experience as a homeroom teacher and a delinquent student. Marina-sensei appeared before the class as the 24-year-old new teacher and one of the capturable sub-heroines. Hiro remembered that she was such an easy heroine because all that had to be done was choosing the kiss option, and then she would marry the protagonist. The thought of a marriage registration form and endless kiss choices drifted through Hiro's mind. Teacher Marina Byzancy introduced herself as the homeroom teacher, while nervous sweat lingered across her face. The teacher explained that there would be the entrance ceremony and an orientation led by the 3 colored leaders. The orientation was treated as especially important, while Lapis listened quietly with a composed expression. Rei's seat beside the other students, and a soft unease sound escaped nearby as the classroom slowly prepared for the coming ceremony. Teacher Marina nervously apologized because the pressure made her feel nauseous. The teacher even wondered if doing 10 pulls would calm those nerves. Hiro watched silently, while thinking that all the gacha medication had already kicked in. Hiro also thought the ceremony explanation might get skipped if the teacher stayed like that. A pop appeared on the screen, and everyone was told to face forward during homeroom. Rei pointed out that Hiro was the one facing backward. Hiro tried to deny it, but Rei corrected him and warned that Hiro had been staring at the beautiful girl behind him. The screen ordered everyone to please face forward during homeroom and warned that chatting was not allowed. Lapis mocked Hiro by asking if Hiro even knew which side was the front and suggested wearing the uniform backward instead. Hiro complained to the teacher that those noisy while Lapis kept calling him idiot again and again. Hiro quietly realized that this kind of noisiness would only happen today. Hiro believed that once things started leaning toward the protagonist, then those students would no longer have the freedom to make fun of him. Teacher Marina apologized with embarrassment and admitted to being a bit of an otaku. The teacher then asked everyone to move toward the main hall. Hiro sat quietly inside the large entrance hall, while there was still time before the entrance ceremony. Hiro decided to plan out the schedule from that point onward, while watching the gathering students. Rei noticed Hiro and softly called out to him. The students gathered around Rei and proudly declared that being in the same class was an honor. The excited students then begged Lapis to tell them about life in the holy capital Alfheim. With that situation continuing around him, Hiro realized there was finally enough peace to think things over without being disturbed. The orientation after the entrance ceremony involved the academy's 3 major dorms. The event, commonly called the traffic light, signaled the start of everything. Once students entered a dorm, they received bonuses and chances to build connections with promising students or even the dorm leader. There were various benefits tied to the system. Hiro explained that the dorm score was a bonus score made up of the total from all the students who moved into the dorm. Even Hiro, who carried a negative score, could ride along and push it into the positive. Hiro greeted the room and admitted that, in other words, Hiro was aiming to move into the dorm. Hiro declared that starting today was the beginning. Hiro suddenly noticed Tsukiori standing there, and confusion struck hard. Hiro could not understand why the protagonist appeared out of nowhere like that. Hiro wondered what kind of weird event was supposed to happen after such a sudden start. Hiro approached Tsukiori with a carefree smile and quietly asked to be excused. Hiro declared that a friend was coming to sit beside Hiro, so Tsukiori should move away. Tsukiori even wondered if Hiro studied swordsmanship or something. Tsukiori stared at Hiro in silence while Hiro laughed awkwardly under the heavy gaze directed forward. Hiro admitted to having a master, but also revealed that Hiro was seriously injured and almost died before properly learning real swordsmanship. Hiro reminded Tsukiori that the answer had already been given and asked once more if Tsukiori would move. Tsukiori calmly rejected Hiro's claim and bluntly declared that Hiro did not have any friends. Hiro could only freeze in shock. Tsukiori quietly reflected on Hiro's words about being self-taught and admitted curiosity about what kind of master Hiro's teacher was. Hiro immediately called out to her after hearing those words. Hiro pointed out that Tsukiori talking to someone like Hiro right off the bat was out of character. Hiro explained that normally Tsukiori would show more interest in the other girls in Class A. Hiro even revealed that proper tabs had already been kept on the others. Hiro even admitted that those two looked far too promising as a future Yuri pair. He believed there were many others like the Oju-sama and the Drill Curls girls. Tsukiori calmly admitted that Hiro's expectations could not be met. Tsukiori then revealed the harsh truth hidden deep within the heart. Those girls were weak in Tsukiori's eyes, and Tsukiori would only ever fall for someone who stood as an equal. That way of thinking was the very reason Tsukiori had been forcibly brought into the academy. Hiro quietly accepted those words and decided that from this point onward Hiro would deepen bonds with the heroines and help open their hearts. Hiro realized that awakening Tsukiori into a Yuri hunter had also become part of the mission. Tsukiori admitted that excitement filled the heart after seeing Hiro at the school gate. She believed this academy would become a school where even the boys burned with passion and determination. Yet that hope quickly faded, because that was not the case at all. Tsukiori moved closer until only a small distance remained between them. Tsukiori softly revealed the real reason behind those feelings. Hiro was strong, and that strength alone drew she forward. The girls nearby reacted with loud confusion, while surprise spread through the crowd. They also raised a voice in shock after witnessing Hiro's dramatic reaction. Hiro froze in horror after realizing that the first ever Yuri kiss camera angle had been completely taken away. Tsukiori coldly declared that marriage would no longer be allowed. Tsukiori also reminded Hiro that no memory existed of ever making him into a guardian. Tsukiori calmly invited Hiro to go to the dungeon together someday, before quietly parting ways. Hiro broke down in despair and loudly swore that no intention existed to become unnecessarily friendly with Tsukiori. Hiro only wanted to become popular with girls and then be crushed by them. The founding purpose of Huju Magic Academy was finally about to be unveiled. Hiro listened as the academy revealed the purpose of Huju Magic Academy: to train mages who would oppose the monsters trying to overflow from the dungeon. The explanation continued with the promise to find comrades who would shatter the dungeon's core and eradicate it. Another purpose existed to seek allies who would contribute to world peace. Hiro remembered how there was a setting like that in most endings. The heroines would forget about the dungeon and become happy. The Crimson Dorm declared that they sought the strong. The fierce girl proudly carried the nickname Blaze and the title Flare by Lulu Flame. The academy explained the system, where once a year each student house could designate a new student they absolutely wanted to recruit. The name Sanja Rei echoed through the hall. Sanja Rei remained still while the attention of the students gathered around her. The evaluation criteria for specially nominated students included score, family background, and ability. Hiro watched quietly, while even the protagonist would struggle to enter the Crimson Dorm. Sanja Rei remained composed even after being chosen by that craft sign dorm. Not showing the slightest reaction only made her presence feel even more impressive. A sudden buzzing sound interrupted the moment, while faint tapping echoed nearby. The surrounding students quietly watched her elegant appearance while the atmosphere slowly changed. Soft tapping echoed near the stage as a graceful girl stepped forward. The girl thanked everyone for their cooperation, while carrying the title Absolute Zero and the name Furii from Ephrygens. The Azure Dorm then revealed their specially nominated student. Her gentle smile spread across the hall and drew the attention of the students around her. Lapis Krul-Alamet quietly revealed her name before the students of the academy. Hiro remembered that Azure's selection was especially strict. Even in the original story, they were never chosen through any normal means. Lapis suddenly showed a playful smile that made the surrounding students freeze in surprise. Hiro watched carefully, while wondering if this girl immediately tried to assert dominance, or if she simply waited to be praised. A troubled thought crossed Hiro's mind as the image of two dogs in a single day appeared again. The elegant girl welcomed the students warmly and offered that if it was a dorm tour, they would always be welcome. Since Crimson and Azure were already done, the final act then arrived with the yellow dorm. The symbol of Flavum appeared before the students. Hiro remembered that in the original game, if the scenario was followed, the protagonist would be chosen for this dorm. In other words, the yellow nominee was definitely Tsukiyomi. The strange sight immediately drew the attention of the students nearby, while another girl quietly followed behind her. A loud clack echoed through the hall as a girl carefully carried a desk across the stage. The long-haired girl then raised a microphone and released a sharp scream across the hall before offering congratulations on enrollment to everyone. She wholeheartedly welcomed their admission. The Academy's history was longer than any recorded history, while Hiro tried to remember that girl. The students nearby whispered about the rumored failure noble lady, while others dismissed it as flat speech like some strange thing being quoted. Hiro quietly wondered how much influence she had gathered to become a dorm leader. The strange girl announced that the dorm introductions would finally conclude after this. The girl then raised the microphone and prepared to reveal the special nominee of the yellow dorm. The entire hall waited in silence for the final name to be announced. The name Sanjo Hiro suddenly echoed across the academy. Shock spread through the crowd as students reacted in confusion. Lapis looked toward Hiro with surprise while Sanju Rei silently turned her gaze toward him. Hiro himself froze after hearing his own name called before the entire hall. Hiro could only stare in shock, while a confused escaped from him after hearing his own name announced before the academy. The dorm leader then revealed the nickname faked together with the name Muru Essen Eisbert. Her confident expression remained steady, while Hiro struggled to understand the sudden situation unfolding before him.